back to my channel. This is part 3 of me explaining the entire Bridgerton universe to you so that y'all don't have to read 3,500 pages because it was a lot. Let's get into it. This is going to cover Eloise and Francesca's books. So that is Sir Philip With Love and When He Was Wicked. And there are a lot of things that I cannot say. So I might be alluding to certain things. We're starting with Sir Philip With Love, which honestly is a pretty dicey book for a lot of people. You either love it or you hate it. I'll let y'all know my thoughts after we finish this one. Sir Philip With Love starts with a prologue. It is 1823 and we are following Philip Crane, who we have not met before, by the way. We have seen him in the TV show, but in the book series this is the first time we are seeing him. Philip is currently reflecting his late wife's passing and we are hitting the ground running. So this prologue is heavy. It is heavy and it's surrounding the passing of his wife, so please be aware of that. His wife's name was Marina and they were together for 8 years. Now you might recognize Marina from season 1 of Bridgerton, but in the book series this is the first time that we have seen or heard of this character. That means in season 1 they took a lot of creative liberties surrounding her character, and everything that y'all know about her staying with the Featheringtons, being related to the Featheringtons, being engaged to Colin, did not happen in the books at all. Sir Philip describes Marina as always being melancholy, and that is the way they describe her as the book goes forward as well. She was always melancholy, never smiled, never seemed happy. That's what the book said, not me, the book. As I said, Philip is reflecting on his late wife's passing, and so we're going back in time. It was a very, very sunny and beautiful day outside. Philip had been talking to his secretary Miles for quite a bit until he decided to go to the greenhouse. We learned that Philip is a botanist, and had his eldest brother not passed away, giving Philip the title and all of the land, he would have went into academia. But instead, he now owns this land and he lives in the countryside. While Philip is working on his experiment, he looks up and he sees Marina pass by through the window. Philip doesn't really think much about this other than the fact that maybe Marina just wanted to enjoy this nice and beautiful day. We also learned that Philip and Marina have 2 children together, Oliver and Amanda. They are twins. Now they are not casted in the show yet, so I have casted them as the main children from Nanny McPhee. If you know, you know, it just fits. It just fits. Philip is very self-aware and he knows that he is not the best father in the world, but all that matters to him is that he is just better than his dad was to him growing up. As soon as he has this thought, he thinks to himself, man, it's a really beautiful day outside. I really think my children would enjoy a nice little nature walk. Before Philip goes to get his children, he thinks to himself, Marina really should be with me. We can go spend time together as a family. So he follows after her and he sees that she is walking towards a lake. I'm skipping over this little section because it's really heavy. So we're just gonna pan to Philip has gotten Marina out of the lake. It is February, mind you, so it is pretty cold. Even though it is nice and sunny outside, it's pretty cold. He gets her back home, they try and warm her up, but sadly she succumbs to a cold and she passes away 3 days later. Right after Marina passes away, Philip looks to his kids and tells them that he is never going to leave them. This is the end of Philip's flashback, so we're gonna pan back to Philip present day. Philip is in deep thought right now because he knows that his children need a mother, or at least need a parent that is going to be more attentive to them than he currently is. His only requirement is that this wife must be happy and that she must love, or at least pretend to love, his children so that they would never know the difference. While he's thinking about who could be his potential wife, Miles, his secretary, comes in the room with a letter addressed to Philip. This letter was written by Eloise and it is Eloise expressing her condolences to Philip over Marina's passing. We learned that Marina and Eloise are 4th cousins, and that is why she is sending her condolences to Philip. Philip knows that Eloise does not require a response back, and honestly it's not even perfect etiquette to send one back, but for some reason he feels very compelled to, and so he picks up his quill. And that is the end of our prologue. This is the first book in our series that does not start every chapter with a Lady Whistledown update. As you can see, she is no more. And instead, this chapter is actually starting off with a letter from Philip to Eloise. Philip thanks Eloise for taking the time to send her condolences, and he also sends her a pressed flower. Remember, he is a botanist. In the letter, he describes that this flower was Marina's favorite, and he also provides her with the scientific name. We are now panning to Eloise, and she once again knows that he does not need a response, but she decides to ask, how do you know so much about this flower? Eloise is very sneaky because she knows since she's ending this letter with a question, he's going to be forced to write back to her. And we love that for her. We do. In 10 days' time, Philip sends Eloise a response saying, yes, I am a botanist. Are you into science as well? Did you notice how that letter also ends in a question? Did you catch that? Eloise tells him, oh, definitely not. I'm more into humanities. That's why I'm writing you this letter. Instead of signing it yours, Eloise, as she has been signing all of her letters so far, she decides to sign it yours in friendship, Eloise, which is a little more forward for this time period, not gonna lie. Philip loved the fact that this is how she ended her letter, and he decides to send her another flower, and he ends his letter in, with great regard, Philip. As soon as Eloise receives this letter, she thinks to herself, oh my gosh, he's trying to court me. He is trying to court me and we have never met before. Why is this man trying to court me? I don't understand. And before Eloise can even send him a response, she receives another letter from Philip. This letter from Philip is confirming that he is trying to court her, and he sends an offer for her to come visit him and his family at Romney Hall. There will be a chaperone, but he wants to see if they are indeed a perfect match, or at least suitable for a lifetime of marriage. This invitation is having Eloise reflect back to all the other times that she was proposed. We've never seen her be proposed in this series, but it tells us that she's been proposed to a total of 6 times, and she's rejected all of them. She claims that she rejected all these men because they weren't perfect, and then she stops herself and goes, no, they don't have to be perfect, but they weren't perfect for me. So that is all she's after, is her perfect match, and she's never found that before. Also note that she is 28 during this time and is considered a spinster. Eloise didn't mind the idea of her being a spinster for the rest of her life because she had Penelope with her to spend spinsterhood together for the rest of their existence. And then, you know, Penelope just did a 180, which no one was expecting, and got with Colin and married Colin, which is now leaving Eloise on her own. It's making her feel very isolated, but it's also making her feel very selfish. She's feeling selfish because she should be happy for her best friend when in reality, she feels like everyone's leaving her behind. She's kept all these feelings inside from her family because she feels like they will not understand what she is going through. This is a big reason why she loves talking to Philip, is because she can tell him all of these things that she would never be able to tell her family because they'd either be overlooked or look at her like she is crazy, or honestly just wouldn't care. She even mentions that Philip was hers. This was her thing. If you can remember in the last book, Colin wholeheartedly believed that Eloise was Lady Whistledown because she was always in her room writing these letters and was covered in ink. This is who she was writing to, and that is how long she was writing to him for. No one knew, but that is what she was doing, which is pretty crazy to me, but I do love that Easter egg from the previous book. Our girl Eloise is a little delusional though, because she's been using these letters to dream up her perfect man, and so she is under the impression that that is Philip. Philip is her dream man. He is probably the most handsome person on the planet, is so wise beyond his years. She ain't never met him. She ain't never seen a picture of him. There was not social media back then. They were not sending pictures of themselves back and forth. No, she doesn't know what he looks like. Doesn't know a single dang thing about him. But currently she's like, he is perfect. He is perfect for me. And honestly, this thought process fuels Eloise to take charge of her destiny and go see what Philip has to offer for her. And as we've seen before in this book series, once Eloise has her mind set on something, there's no changing it. There's no changing the path that she is set to be on. And she also knows once she tells Anthony that he will do everything in his power to either stop her from going or convince Philip to come visit her. And she knows once he meets all of this, he's probably not gonna want to continue to court her, if we're being completely honest. She also contemplates the fact that maybe Anthony will let her go, but with chaperones, and the only people left to go chaperone her would be Violet and Hyacinth. And Eloise notes that if they were in a room, no one would be falling in love. No one would be falling in love at all because they would suck all the air out of the room. And who can fall in love under those circumstances? And so of course, the only reasonable thing Eloise can do in a time like this is to just go. Not tell anyone in her family where she's going. Just leave and scurry off to the countryside. Oh, and might I add, not only is she not telling them where she's going, she's not even telling Philip that she's coming. Keep that in mind for later. Now here's Eloise's grand scheme. Colin has told everyone that at Daphne's ball, he has a really big announcement that he has to make to the town. And Eloise is like, perfect, this one I will make my escape during this announcement. This is also when the timeline of this book is finally understood. So this book is taking place right at the tail end of Colin's book. This ball that we are talking about, hosted by Daphne, is when Colin and Penelope announce to the world that she is Lady Whistledown. And this is the moment Eloise is like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Interesting moment. I probably would have stayed around for that, but you know what? No. You gotta go for the perfect man, allegedly. You do you, girl. You do you. I will note that this is one thing I don't love about the book, because I really would have appreciated having Eloise's reaction to Penelope being Lady Whistledown. Now, I know we got that in the show. That is Eloise's Joker moment. We have that. But I don't believe that that's the direction the book would have went in, and I think that that would have been very interesting to see how Eloise handled all of that. But I can't change a book that's been out since 2003, that's for sure. So let's move forward. Let's see what Philip is up to this morning, shall we? Philip is in his greenhouse overthinking everything. And he's overthinking everything because Eloise never sent him a response. Not only did she not tell him, hey, like, I'm gonna come visit you soon, she didn't even say she was interested or anything. She just let it hang there in the air. And Philip is literally overthinking every single thing, saying, was I too forward? Did she not feel the same way? I was getting the same vibe from her. Why is she not responding to me? Did it get lost in the mail? What is happening? And while Philip is having this existential crisis over Eloise, his butler comes in the room and says, sir, you have a caller. Which really takes Philip back, being like, who is visiting us? I obviously do not have a caller. And the butler's like, I promise you there is someone at the door. You have a caller. Come on. Philip reluctantly gets up, leaves his greenhouse and his experiment behind, goes to the foyer, and who is the caller, you might ask? It's Eloise, but please remember that they have not met before. And so Eloise is just going on and on and on about how she's so sorry to show up unannounced, yada, 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 yada. She literally is not taking a breath while she is rambling. She finishes speaking. Philip looks at her and is like, that's great. Who are you? To which our girl goes, oh, I'm Eloise Bridgerton. I would just like y'all to know that this is the most awkward encounter ever, and I would not want to be a fly on the wall in this conversation. I don't even think the butler really wants to be here, but he is doing Sir Philip a solid, and he's like, do you want any refreshments? Do you want me to get you this? Let's go into this room instead. Trying to save this conversation because it's rough. Eloise is thinking to herself, wow, I really thought that Philip was the perfect man, but he's not charming. He's actually a little awkward. Those are her words, not mine. She literally says, I thought that he would be as charming as Colin is to everyone in the town. Everyone would just fall all over him and love him, but he's awkward. As soon as the butler gets him into the other room, Philip literally has nothing to talk about except the weather. And so he's like, wow, it is so sunny outside. Eloise is sitting there being like, yeah, awesome. I didn't come all this way to talk about the weather, but cool. And Eloise is getting more and more frustrated by the second because she cannot figure him out. Eloise has prided herself on always being able to figure out every single detail on every single person her whole life in like a matter of minutes. She can't figure this man out at all. She really can't. And so she's sitting there listening to him ramble about the weather, nodding her head, being like, yes, 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 thinking to herself, what have I gotten myself into? Who even are you? Eloise is about to break the silence because she cannot take it anymore until she hears a really loud scream. And Eloise is like, what on earth is that? Oh, it's just my kids. You have kids? Don't you remember me telling you about them? You never told me that you had kids. I would remember something like that. I obviously told you. No, you didn't. She gets up to go try and find her bag with all the letters in it, and he goes, you kept all of the letters? Of course. Did you not keep any of my letters? He's digging himself in a hole right now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, and I don't think he's gonna be able to get out. He goes, I think I might have a few of them laying around. Eloise is offended and angry and confused, and she just responds, well, shouldn't you go check on your kid? Shouldn't you go check? Oh, yes, 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 of course. Let me go do that real quick. He's shouting at Amanda and Oliver as he's making his way up the steps. He turns to Amanda and he's like, why did you scream? What happened? There was a frog in my bed. Why is there a frog in your bed? Well, I wanted tadpoles. Why would you put in your bed if you wanted tadpoles? I wanted them to be nice and warm and cozy. Okay, then why did you scream if you knew there was a frog there? I forgot I put him there and it really scared me. Yeah, it really scared her. I kind of thought she was gonna pass out. Philip rolls his eyes and responds with, I thought I told you no more frogs in the house. You said no more toads. Let me just make sure we're all on the same page. There will be no more animals in this household, which makes Amanda start to cry because they have a pet dog. They have a family dog. And immediately Philip goes, oh, well, obviously our pet dog will stay in the house. Don't worry about that, but like no amphibians of any kind. And they're all shaking their head being like, yes, 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 of course, of course. Just make sure we get to keep our dog. And Eloise is just observing and laughing, and she makes her way over them and goes, oh my goodness, who do we have here? The kids look at Eloise and go, we don't want you here. We don't want any guests. Please go back to where you came from. Eloise is like, okay. And Philip says, this is my guest in my home. You will welcome her here. She is staying unless she wants to go home. And Eloise just responds with, I'm staying, I'm staying. Philip sends the kids on their way. The kids complain because they want to go spend time with him in the greenhouse, but Philip just thinks that they would cause too much of a ruckus, so he's like, no, 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 I need my space. Go, go, go. The butler, once again, is coming in clutch. He senses that it is awkward. He goes, tea is ready, food is ready, please come. As soon as the butler says this, Philip turns to Eloise and goes, enjoy your breakfast, and just scurries away. He runs as fast as he can to the greenhouse so that he won't have to spend any more time with Eloise. Our girl Eloise is offended, let me tell you. New chapter, and this chapter starts off with a letter Eloise wrote to Penelope right after her first proposal, where Eloise says, I just want to marry a man who's going to treat me like a queen. Or honestly, a princess. I'll take a princess too, but that is how I want to be treated. Now let's go back to present day. Eloise is honestly regretting every choice she has ever made. She is thinking to herself, why did I come here? This is not the man that I made up in my head. This does not even seem like the man who wrote letters to me. He didn't even keep the letters that I wrote to him. This is not what I was after. She also notes that she does not believe that Philip is a good father. From the really quick encounter that she just experienced, she's like, I don't know if he is a good dad, which is an immediate red flag for her because she grew up in an amazing household full of siblings, so she obviously wants kids. And so this is a little bit of a red flag. At this point, Eloise is so angry and she's like, I'm not gonna sit here anymore. I've got to get out of this room. So she gets up and she starts to go explore the house, but before she can do that, as soon as she steps out in the hallway, who is she greeted by? the children. And you can tell that the children were waiting by her door for her to open it up so that they could have a little chat with her. The children tell Eloise that they do not want her here and that she needs to leave right now. Eloise tells them, I'm at least staying the week, like I am not leaving. This makes Oliver so angry that he literally sprints and rams into Eloise, pushing her onto the ground. As soon as she stands up, the kids are a little frightened with how she is going to respond to this, but all she does is she crouches down, looks the kids in the eye and goes, you're clever, but I'm clever too. Game on, children, game on! All right, let's see what Philip is up to during this moment in time. He's in his greenhouse, and once again, we are seeing this man having an existential crisis. But honestly, this one is very valid because Eloise showed up unannounced, but that's not even why he's freaking out. He's freaking out because he's thinking to himself, she's a 28-year-old spinster. A spinster, she should be ugly. His words, not mine. He used the word ugly. I would not have chosen that word, but that is all he's thinking is, this woman does not seem like she should be a spinster. This makes no sense to me. Was her reputation ruined? Did something happen? Why is she a 28-year-old spinster? She should have men lined up down the street for her. He's also now racking his head thinking to himself, well, if I had any chance of marrying her, it's all gone out the window with how our last discussion just went. He thinks to himself, you know what? I'm gonna invite her to eat a meal with me. Let me go do that real quick. We'll catch up. It'll be a nice little bonding moment for us. He's in the kitchen to wash his hands before he goes to get Eloise, and he just sees Eloise sitting there at the table talking to the hell, eating a sandwich. He is baffled by this. He is like, oh, I was just about to go get you to get a meal, but I see that you are fine. Oh, no big deal. I would love to do that. Let me just take my sandwich and we'll go somewhere else. Also, you should have one of these. These are so good. She calls the chef by his name and says, should we make another one? Do you have enough to make another one? Philip is so confused as to what is happening because he has never met someone who is just so confident in themselves to just feel at home wherever they are. And low-key, he's kind of enamored at this point in time. He won't admit it, but like you can tell he is a little enamored by her. When they're sitting down to eat together, Philip looks at Eloise and he goes, you are not what I was expecting. Eloise goes, I was a spinster by choice, not because I didn't have any options. I was proposed to 6 times. They just weren't the man that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And also, based off of your letters, I feel like you would be a really good candidate, thus why I'm here. She then asks him, why can't you find another wife in the countryside here? His response to this question is, my children. He then goes on and says, I don't have the energy or time for romance. I just need a wife and I need a mother for my children. She immediately responds with, which one? Which one what? Which one do you need? A wife or a mother? I need both. But which one do you want more? I need them both. She just nods her head and she's like, okay, like maybe we can't separate the two. Makes sense. Still don't really understand you, but like we'll keep going on with our life. They finish lunch. This is the moment Philip decides that he needs to get Eloise to stay. That she would be perfect for his children and for him, even though he's not going to admit that. And she needs to stay. Chapter 4, we were reflecting on Philip's marriage to Marina. Once again, trigger warnings, trigger warnings, trigger warnings, but the reader can assume that Marina had postpartum depression after giving birth to the twins. Back in this time period, they were not advanced enough to know what this was or what this meant or how to even treat it. And so some of the choices of words that they use make sense for the time period, but today it wouldn't have worked because she would have gotten a proper diagnosis, she would have gotten help, and people would have known what was going on, which honestly is really sad. And I am just really thankful that modern medicine, modern healthcare, have progressed the way that they have. Once Philip is done reflecting, he decides that he wants to go see Eloise again, so he goes upstairs to go get her so that they can hang out for a little bit, and he immediately sees that she is head to toe covered in flour, and he's so confused, being like, what on earth? And then immediately goes, my children did this to you. I am so sorry. Don't apologize for them. You don't have to apologize for them. They should apologize to me themselves. He then asks, did you happen to see them or hear them? Like, where did they go? Eloise responds with, well, it was a little hard for me to see or even hear them when I was getting hit in the head with a bucket. This honestly could have taken the story in a completely different direction. We could have had a Carrie moment. But thankfully we didn't, and she's okay. She just has a little bump on her head. Once Philip evaluates Eloise's injury and makes sure that she is okay, he then asks her, how do you think that they did it? Eloise responds with, they put the bucket on top of the door. I know exactly how they did it. I have 7 brothers and sisters. This is nothing new to me. This is not a new trick at all. Philip is just nodding along with this, and she goes, I know how to get them back. I'm going to get them back. They're all yours. As long as you don't harm them, they're all yours. Have at it. Once again, game on. Once Eloise is cleaned up, she goes downstairs to meet Philip for dinner, and during this dinner, they hear Amanda scream so loudly. Philip starts to get up from the table, and Eloise goes, no, it's okay. It's no big deal. Philip looks at her and says, what did you do? Eloise says, There's a fish in her bed. A fish? Where did you get a fish from? Well, you said in your letters that you weren't a fan of fish, but some people on your property actually had some, and I asked, and I put it in her bed because I knew it would freak her out. What'd you put in Oliver's bed? Oh, I didn't put anything in his bed. I'm just gonna make him think that I did so he's freaked out. And honestly, that plan worked really well because Oliver truly is so confused and so scared with what she could have done to him. He was like, where's my fish? Eloise also decides to tell Philip that his kids need discipline, love, and attention. And this makes Philip so angry. Like, you have been here for barely a day and you're trying to tell me how I should raise my children? This makes Eloise in turn very angry. And so she's like, you know what? I'm not gonna handle this. I'm gonna go back to my room. Philip goes, wait. Don't you want to see your victory on Amanda's face when she comes downstairs? And Eloise can't resist that. She has to see that she won. And let me tell you, it was a really good victory when Amanda came downstairs because her face was priceless. And Eloise just soaked that in. She soaked in the victory. While Amanda is down here, she looks her down and she goes, you're really gonna let this lady treat us like this? She needs to leave. Philip goes, once again, Eloise is a guest in my house and you will treat her so, and you will also stop messing with her. I saw what you did with the flower. Don't think that you were so sly. She responds with, that was Oliver's idea. Philip goes, mm-hmm. And Amanda says, well, I helped him a little bit, but it was his idea. Why didn't he get a fish in his bed? What's coming for him is way worse, even though it's nothing. It's in this moment that Philip thinks to himself that he would happily give over his husband power to his wife and let his wife be in charge of everything, while he just hung out and experimented in his greenhouse. It's giving babysitter. It's not giving wife, it's giving babysitter. But moving forward, we now go to Eloise where she also makes a mental note saying maybe Philip would actually be a good husband for me. Not in the most poetic or romantic way, but still a decent man and still a decent husband, which should be good enough for me. Philip is giving Eloise a tour. They come across all their family portraits and he explains a lot of his family lore. He explains that he had an older brother named George, who we already know about. That is why Philip is now the man of the house in the countryside and couldn't continue botany in an academic setting. But what we didn't know is that George was the one originally engaged to Marina. Marina was his brother's betrothed, which is what the show did. Don't y'all remember in the show she was with the other Crane brother? That storyline is still here. Eloise tells Philip all about her father and what happened to her while she was growing up, and she tells Philip that honestly she completely understands what his kids are going through. She understands losing someone that close to you at such a young age, and she does feel very sorry for them. Philip goes, I never thought about it like that. Like, you really do relate to them in a lot of ways that I can't. They're honestly having a really good moment right now, and Eloise looks at him and goes, let's go to your greenhouse in the morning. I really want to see where you work and what you're doing. This makes Philip ecstatic, and he goes, let's just go tonight. It's a nice night outside. Let's just go tonight. So we're going to the greenhouse. Philip explains the experiment that he is working on. He is working with peas and he is trying to find a strain to make them grow larger in the pod. And Eloise is thinking to herself, I have never heard of anything like this. Like, this is so interesting, genuinely. And they start to have a little bit of a moment because she's letting Philip talk about something that he's so passionate about and adores, and he looks at her and he just asks, can I kiss you? She doesn't say anything, but she nods. And mind you, this is her first kiss. She's 28 years old. She's been labeled as a spinster. This is her first kiss. They indeed kiss in the greenhouse, but in true Eloise fashion, she starts to ramble. She's a rambler. And he is just thinking to himself, please stop. Please be quiet. Please, please, please. And so he just decides to kiss her again. And now it's the next morning. Eloise is thinking to herself, I'm gonna be like a little late to breakfast because I don't want to be too on time, because what am I supposed to say to this man that I just kissed? Are we gonna acknowledge the kiss that happened, or how are we gonna move forward from this? What is going to happen? Again, she is rambling and she's nervous. It's what she does. She decides to leave her room. As soon as she starts to head that way, she actually trips over a string that she didn't see, planted by these two hooligans. And when I say she trips, I mean she trips and she lands hard because she does not put her hands out to stop her. And so she's left with a black eye. Philip sees this. He comes after her. He sits with her for a little bit and he is like, this is not okay. My kids cannot do this to you. I will handle this right now. He goes to his kids. He handles it, brings the kids back out to her. They apologize to her. And Philip is like, what else do you have to say to her? Amanda goes up and she's like, here, do you like my candies? You can have my candies. Eloise is thinking, oh, I don't really want your candies, but thank you. And then she goes, you know what? No, never mind. I actually don't want your candies at all. Instead, y'all will give me an afternoon. An afternoon? Yeah, when I'm feeling better and I'm no longer sore, I want an afternoon to get to know y'all and hang out with y'all and just have fun. They don't want to do this, but they also just caused her a great injury, so they are going to accept and to do this. Once the children leave the room, he goes to check on Eloise one more time. He tells her that he was a boxer and so he's really used to these injuries, which honestly, out of character for Philip. I never would have guessed that, if I'm being completely transparent with y'all. He also tells Eloise that they need to get her a chaperone immediately. Immediately they need to get a chaperone in this building, otherwise she will be ruined before they even get the chance to know if they're gonna end up getting married or not. Of course, and honestly, I'm not too sore right now. I think a nice stroll in the garden would do me very, very well. Awesome, you enjoy that. You should go get a book. And then he just leaves. And she's very mad because she was hardcore hinting that he should join her. And she knows that he knows. And so she's now angry. Eloise is in the garden, she's sitting in a chair, and she has never been more bored in her life. She is not one to sit still, and the book that she picked was a book on botany, and so she's like, I can't stop reading it now, but also if he sees me reading it, he's gonna think that I'm interested in this, and I'm really not, and I'm also not reading it. And so she's like, what on earth am I supposed to be doing? So she just gets up. She gets up, she starts to wander around. He sees her wandering around, he leaves his greenhouse, and he kind of starts yelling at her, being like, what are you doing? You need to sit back down, you are injured. I promise you I'm fine. I cannot sit in that same place for that long, I'm fine. He tells her that he can't work if he has to worry about her. She looks at him and she goes, are you even the same man from last night? This takes him aback. He does not like this question. And since he doesn't like it, he basically ignores it and goes, this morning just put me in a horrible mood. No kidding. No kidding. She's the one over here with the black eye. Hello? She looks at him and she goes, I'm going on a walk right now. And he literally goes over to her, scoops her up, and plops her back down in the chair saying, you are injured. You are sitting here. The next day, Eloise is so aggravated and she decides to go talk to Philip for a little bit. When she goes downstairs, she learns that Philip isn't home. And she thinks to herself, you know what? I know the kids promised me an afternoon, but I'm feeling okay. Let's see if instead they'll take a morning instead of an afternoon. So she goes to hang out with the kids. It's a beautiful day, and so she invites them to go swimming with her. The nursemaid says that she doesn't know if this is a good idea. He's not home, and Eloise is like, it's a beautiful day. Like, it'll be fine. No big deal. The nursemaid just kind of lets them go do their thing. While they are on their walk to the lake to go swimming, Amanda grabs Eloise's hand and tells her that she actually does really like her, and she's thankful that Eloise wants to hang out with them. Oliver says nothing in this moment. Philip comes home from the rose garden to a completely silent house. He is told that the kids and Eloise have gone swimming, and I kid you not, you would think that you just saw a ghost because his face became pale white as a sheet. Because mind you, what happened in the beginning of the story to Marina in the same lake? Yes, 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 yes. He takes off to a full sprint to the lake. We pan back to the lake with Eloise. Eloise was prepared to try and teach the kids how to swim, but she notices that they are really strong swimmers, and so she's like, this is beautiful, we're just gonna have such a relaxing day. And then immediately we just hear Philip shouting, get out of the lake, get out of the lake right now. What are you doing? Go to the house. He turns to Eloise and he thinks, what the heck were you thinking? I told you not to let them to go to the lake. What are you talking about? You never told me they couldn't go swimming. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. He starts to say, well, you should have known. No, I should not have known. The nursemaid just let me go on my happy way without saying that it was forbidden. You'd think if it was an issue, someone would have told me that it was just forbidden to go. He looks at her and goes, you just put my children in danger. She goes, they can swim. They're really good swimmers. They were not in danger at all. He responds with, I don't care if you can swim. My kids can't swim. She hesitates and goes, yes, they can. That's what I just said. And they're really good at it. And now he is feeling embarrassed and horrible because he didn't even know that his kids knew how to swim at all. And then he starts reflecting and he's thinking to himself, what do I know about my kids? I don't even think I know their favorite color. And so he's feeling like a really bad dad at this moment in time. Eloise can see the panic in his eyes and goes, it is okay. Maybe you should go lay down for a little bit. He looks at her and he sees that she is dripping wet, obviously because she's just in the lake, and he's freaking out saying, we need to get you dry clothes. Like, you cannot catch a cold. We're going to be okay. We're just gonna get you dry clothes, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, it's the middle of summer. It's gonna be okay. I'm not gonna catch a cold in the middle of summer. But we know why he is thinking this way. Panning back to the prologue. Eloise can obviously tell that there are memories triggering this response from him, and honestly, there's a little bit of an emotionally charged response happening to both of them. But Eloise stops him and says, no, no, no. No. He apologizes and she tries to get him to go into the house with her just to kind of calm down. And he says, no, I have some things I need to think about. Like what? Everything. Later that night, Eloise was purposely late to dinner and she sees Philip standing by the window. He apologizes to her and he also explains exactly what happened to Marina at that lake and why he was acting that way. While they're talking, they hear loud voices get closer and closer and closer. And Philip says, what on earth is that? And now it's Eloise's turn to turn white as a sheet. She immediately knows what this loud noise is. She looks at him and she says, I'm so sorry. Those are my brothers. Finally! All 4 of Eloise's brothers come barreling into the room. Anthony literally grabs Philip by the neck. Benedict's pinning him up against the wall. Eloise literally jumps on top of Benedict, pulls his hair, trying to get him off of Philip. Benedict is screaming to his brothers, get her off of me, help me, get her off of me. And all the brothers are just ignoring this, being like, you got this, dude, this is all you. While this is happening, they all turn to Eloise and they notice that she has a black eye, and they immediately assume that Philip is the reason for this. And Eloise is like, no, that's not what happened. This is exactly what happened. I fell because of his kids. I am okay. And all the brothers kind of take this sigh of relief, but then they ask Philip. Philip says the exact same thing, even though he didn't even hear what Eloise's response was because, you know, lack of oxygen. Lack of oxygen makes the brain not work. We also learned that while Anthony had Philip pinned against the wall, Gregory sucker punched him in the chin, and he just kept saying, I had to protect my sister's honor. Eloise is laughing, looks at Gregory and goes, as if you can protect me, you're like 20. I'm 23 years old. Well, I'm 28 and I didn't need your help when you were in diapers, and I certainly don't need your help now. Colin finally speaks and goes, he wanted to come. We couldn't stop him. Gregory wanted to come with. Colin also is the only one that did not fight. During this moment, he kind of just stood to the side and watched the action happen. Eloise explains that Anthony, Benedict, and Colin are her elders. That is the word she used, elders, and that Gregory is an infant. Eloise is baffled by the fact that they were able to find her, and Colin goes, if you were trying to run away, you shouldn't leave letters in your desk. Anthony takes Eloise into Philip's study, and he tells her, you have 2 options right here. You can get married at the end of the week. You can get married at the end of next week. You decide. While they are discussing her choices, Philip is left with the 3 brothers, Benedict, Colin, and Gregory. Oh yes. Oh yes. We're gonna pay back to Anthony and Eloise. Eloise tells him, I don't know if I want to marry this man yet. I've only known him for 2 days. Which, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it feels so much longer than just 2 days have passed. But that's what the book said. So, it's been 2 days, allegedly. After Anthony listens to Eloise and why she decided to do what she did, Anthony takes a second to think, and he goes, okay, here's the plan. You are going to come back with us. You're going to stay at my cottage, which is the name of Benedict's cottage. If you remember from book 3, we love that little parallel, but that is where she's going to stay, and she's going to stay there for a week. Philip is allowed to come visit her once a day, every day. And if by the end of the week, Anthony decides that he is worthy of his sister, they will be getting married. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Eloise and Anthony leave the study, and she finds Philip honestly bonding with the 3 brothers and having a great time. Some may say too great of a time. Let's just say that they weren't drinking water, that is for sure. And now let's go to my cottage. We get to see our main girl, Sophie. We love Sophie. Her and Benedict are just so happy and in love. So refreshing to see her because we didn't see her at all in the last book. Sophie honestly is able to get a lot more information about Eloise as well, because if you recall from Sophie's book, she was literally her maid, and so Eloise is very used to talking to Sophie in general. While Sophie and Eloise are talking, we see that Philip is making his way to the house with a bouquet of orchids for Eloise, and Sophie is just swooning, saying, that is the nicest thing ever. This is so amazing. When Philip makes it to the cottage, gives Eloise these flowers, he tells her that he will try his best to make her happy and that his children need a mother. Eloise smiles very, very weakly at this. Honestly, it's not too reassuring for her in this moment in time, because she wants her marriage to be more than just children. She wants to be in love. He looks at her and says, you will make a great help, don't you agree? She nods very briefly and he goes, beautiful, that's settled. And guys, I don't know if you caught that or not, but like, that's their proposal. It's settled. Lovely, beautiful, jaw-dropping. Thank you, Sir Philip, man of many words. Eloise and Philip start arguing back and forth a little bit. The brothers enter the room and they look at them and say, you're a great match after all, because all the best couples bicker and y'all seem to be bickering all the time. Eloise just keeps thinking to herself, like, I don't know if we are a good match. Philip can see this in her face, so he's freaking out a little bit, and then he just looks at Anthony and goes, can I have a moment by myself with your sister real quick? Just like really, really quick. Anthony is like, sure. Why not? Would love nothing more than that. Go for it. So he grabs Eloise by the hand. He asks her where on earth they can go. She tells him, well, Sophie's in the other room, so we could probably just go to Sophie's study. He looks at her and says, you're worried we might not suit. I think it's time I showed you that we do. And things happen. He definitely shows her some things. Things are happening. Yes, yes, yes. With her brothers like right there in the other room having no clue this is going on. After things happen, Philip leaves the room, gives Eloise a moment to compose herself. get herself ready. He goes outside. He sees that the brothers are shooting at targets. He joins them for a little bit. Eloise comes outside and she gets so angry that they started without her. They're not letting her join in. She's like, you should obviously share with me. Why aren't we sharing? Philip's like, here, you can take my turn. You go for it. And the boys are like, oh my goodness. If this is the man that's going to make you actually be a nice human, Eloise, like, please get married ASAP. Please and thank you. Okay, let's fast forward to the Bridgertons finally meeting the children. Philip finally tells the kids that he is intending on marrying Eloise, and the kids are ecstatic over this news, saying, we really do like her. Thank you so much, Dad. Like, this is amazing. He goes, the last thing I need to do is win over her family, so y'all have got to go. I'm gonna need y'all to go away. Please leave. And the kids look at him and they just ask him, are you ashamed of us? Like, why can't we stay and hang out? Eloise loves us. I don't understand. Eloise actually is already here when this conversation happens and sees that Philip is flustered. So she goes towards the kids, leans down, whispers something to them. They look up at her, smile, and then go off on their merry way. Once the kids are gone, Eloise looks at Philip and asks, do you love me? Y'all could hear crickets at this moment in time. Let me tell you, he does not say a single word. So she goes, did you love Marina? Immediate no. Quick, didn't even have to think about it. No. Eloise is very surprised by his lack of emotion and she doesn't know how to feel over his answer. She doesn't know whether to feel happy that he never left her, jealous, sad, has no clue how to feel in this moment. So she just simply asks, why did you marry her? I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. Remember, she was betrothed to his brother before his brother passed. And now it's Philip's turn to ask Eloise questions and he goes, why did you leave London? Eloise responds with, to meet you, of course. And Philip's not happy with this answer and so he presses on a little more and he asks, was it because of a lover? Eloise responds with, no, and swats her hand just like I did in that moment in time. And Anthony whips around, because remember, she has to have chaperones, so her family's still here. He whips around, looks like, is everything okay? And she goes, it was just a bee, a bee. His eyes widen and he is like marching his way over and she goes, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. Because remember, Anthony has a thing with bees. He doesn't like bees, but he was gonna march over there to make sure she was safe. She picked a really bad distraction, that is for sure. But like, kudos to Anthony, getting over his fear to save his sister. Eloise looks at Philip and explains, she didn't have a lover, but she also explained exactly why she left London and how she was feeling over the Penelope and Colin situation and how she just felt like she was being left behind. He let her talk and talk and talk until she had nothing else to say. He just held her hand and said, it's all right. 4 days after this happened, they were married. The whole Bridgerton family shows up except for Francesca because Francesca was in Scotland and she had no way to be able to make it there in time on such a short notice. We finally see Violet and I missed her so much. Eloise asks her, did I disappoint you? Violet says, my children never disappoint me. They only astonish me. And I think I like it that way. I love that answer. I miss Violet so much. Eloise hugs Violet and Violet just holds her until Eloise is feeling a lot better. She pulls away for a second, looks at Eloise and says, okay, I hate this part, but we need to have a talk. Violet then pauses for a second and goes, actually, do we have to? Eloise's like, well, if you're asking if I've done anything, I haven't. Good, but like, do you know how it works? Yeah, I really don't, but I don't think you need to explain it. I think we're okay. Okay, great, thank you so much. I did not want to have to do this again. Violet then adds, are you certain you'll be happy? It's a little late for that at this point, don't you think? Eloise immediately says, but yes, I think I will end up being happy. Violet says, I think you will too, but just remember it takes time. Eloise is so confused by what this means and she tries to question her mother and her mother doesn't say anything. So Eloise is like, what does this cryptic message mean? The Bridgerton clan has left and it is now the night of the wedding. I will say during this time before anything happens, we do get some background knowledge on Philip's childhood and it really was not a good one. Once again, this is another moment of trigger warnings. This is chapter, let me check. This is chapter 14. So either be wary of it or if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, you can go in depth because I really don't want to discuss this scene. No, thank you. After we've learned more about Philip, we're gonna fast forward about a week. Eloise goes upstairs to go visit the children and she sees that they have very obviously been crying and that they are not okay. She learns that the nursemaid is a little more aggressive in her teaching styles than she should be. And Eloise says, no, we're not gonna do that. I'm actually dismissing you for the day. I can teach them all the cursive that they need to know. Please go away from me. Please, please leave. As soon as she does this, the kids embrace her immediately and tell her thank you, thank you, thank you. And Oliver looks up at Eloise and says, I like you way more than that nurse. Eloise makes a mental note of this experience and goes to tell Philip exactly what happened. And he tells her that if she has a problem with it, she is more than welcome to look into it. She's stunned by his reaction, just says, you're their father, but you're their mother. And I trust your judgment, that's why I married you. This was not the thing to say to Eloise. They argue back and forth for honestly a while, and then Eloise says, I was just trying to talk to you. To which he says, and I quote, that's all you ever do. Talk, talk, talk. Are you dumb? Is he dumb? That is, no, sir. No. She responds with, well, maybe you shouldn't have married me then. It wasn't as if I had a choice in the matter. Your brothers were terrifying. Again, not the right choice of words. She tells him that in order to have a good marriage, they need to talk. They can't just be intimate all the time. He's so confused why being intimate all the time is a problem. Eloise just keeps saying that can't be all our marriage is. That can't be it. He then goes on to tell her that he has not been intimate with anyone in 8 years. That was a long, dry spell for him, and he doesn't want to go through that again. So pardon him for that. And after he says this, he doesn't wait for a response. He just leaves. He's gone. He's out of here. Eloise has not moved from the spot for an hour, trying to rack her brain over what just happened. How do we go from talking about the nursemaid to go into intimacy to him just leaving? Like, what? And at this point, Eloise needed someone. Her mother was too far away. All of her sisters wouldn't understand. And so she goes to the first person she can think of, Sophie. And she makes her way to my cottage. Philip is also racking his brain and thinking, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Why did I talk to her this way? What was I doing? He finally decides to make his way into the house to talk to Eloise. The butler says, Eloise isn't here. He is freaking out thinking, oh my God, she left me. She just left me. The butler sees this, and once again, being an amazing butler, goes, sir, she didn't pack a bag. It's okay, she didn't pack a bag. Snaps to that butler, ladies and gents. Give him a raise. He knows Eloise didn't pack a bag, which means she has to come back. So during this time, he decides to go visit his children upstairs. He hears an order say he shouldn't be hearing while his kids are being taught their lessons. So he peeks through the door and he sees basically exactly what Eloise was saying, that the nurse is not handling her disciplinary actions correctly. And he immediately goes in. He's like, you're dismissed. You are dismissed. Leave. Get out of my house. She responds with, they need to be disciplined. All my stuff is here. What am I supposed to do? You have 30 minutes to get out of my house. Go. Go, go, go. And his kids just embrace him and they have a really good bonding moment. Philip apologizes for everything and tells his kids that he loves them and he wants them around and he's sorry he ever made them feel like he doesn't. Now let's pan to Eloise and what she's up to. She's finally made it to my cottage. She goes up to the door. No one's really answering. Eventually the footman comes, let her in. And he goes, what are you doing here, Eloise? What's going on? Like, he's really stressed. Eloise is thinking, you know, I forgot to send a message yet again. Here I am, just showing up unannounced. That's like her thing to do, apparently. She goes in, the footman is explaining, like, Charles is sick, the parents have been up all night. This is not a good time. Benedict comes in, he sees Eloise, and Benedict looks horrible. Eloise is asking, like, what is going on? What is happening? Benedict explains that Charles, their oldest son, came down with a fever last night and hasn't broke, and they've tried everything and they are just worried sick about him. He finally got Sophie to go to bed, saying that she looked horrible as well, and Eloise goes, well, so do you. You need to go to bed. I'm here. I will watch after your son. Go get some rest, please. He thanks her. She goes to stay with Charles, make sure that he's okay. It's now 8 p.m. She's not sent a letter to Phil at all. So she's like, I should probably let him know where I'm at. Let me write him a letter. She writes him a letter. They send it out the door. Let's pan to Philip, who is losing his mind. Thinking to himself, well, she either actually left me without taking a bag or she's in a carriage accident. I don't know what to do. I just got to go. I've got to go check on her. We're going to my cottage. So he gets up, he leaves, he storms into their house, and he immediately learns that Charles is sick, so he kind of backs down a little bit. Benedict and Sophie are now awake. They are so stressed. They have been explaining everything to Philip, all the treatment plans that they have given Charles, and nothing is working. Philip, being a botanist, and what's going to save the day of botany, he asks them if they have any willow bark tree. Benedict and Sophie look at each other like, no, we don't have any of that. Maybe the crab gates do, but I don't think they're home. I don't know what to do. Philip is like, do not worry. Do not worry one bit, because there's willow trees outside. We'll just go take some bark. We'll go put in some boiling water. Beautiful, it'll work. Sophie's like, you're gonna put bark in water and then make my son drink that. And Benedict's like, we're gonna try anything at this point. We're gonna try anything. We need the fever to go away. They end up doing that. Philip gives him the tea, Charles drinks it, and by morning his fever is broke. His fever is gone. And so Philip's feeling pretty good about himself, Eloise is feeling pretty good about Philip. Life is amazing and back to normal. Philip ends up apologizing to Eloise, telling her everything that happened with the nurse and how he should have believed her immediately and should have handled it. Instead of going on the long tangent and trying to make her handle everything, he should have been a better partner and father. Eloise thanks him for doing this and also just thanks him for coming to save Charles, because Eloise wouldn't have known what to do if it were their children. Actually, she uses the word our children. First time she's ever referred to Oliver and Amanda as her own. It's really just a sweet moment. Philip realizes during this conversation that he is in love with Eloise. He knows it, he feels it. He is like, this is what love is supposed to feel like, and I'm in love with this woman. When they get back home, Eloise is exhausted and she knows that Philip must be as well since they both stayed up all night. She goes, let's go inside, let's go take a nap, and everything will just be amazing afterwards. Philip goes, you go on ahead, I'm gonna go talk to the children real quick. I'll be up soon. When Eloise wakes up from her nap, she notices that his side of the bed was never slept in, so he obviously never came up for a nap. She's alone right now. This is the first time she's able to reflect on the conversation her and Philip had before she went to Benedict and Sophie's. And she realizes that when he was talking about his dry spell, he said that it was for 8 years. Marina passed away like 14 months ago. And he's been in a dry spell for 8 years. These children are almost 9 years old. The math is mathin' for Eloise. Finds Philip, tells Philip the realization that she had. Philip finally tells Eloise exactly what happened to Marina. Not what they told everyone in town, but exactly what happened to her, which again, y'all would know in the prologue. Philip tells Eloise that all he wants is for her to be happy. He doesn't care about anything else as long as Eloise is happy. Eloise looks at Philip and tells him that she is happy, and as soon as she says that, Philip looks at her and tells her that he loves her. To which Eloise says it back. The next day, Philip finds Eloise and says that they should go out together. Eloise is like, this is an amazing idea. This is gonna be so much fun. Let's definitely do this. Where should we go? Philip goes, actually, hold up a second. Let me go get the kids because I think we should do our first family outing. And Eloise says, that's perfect. Not knowing what they should do together as a family, Eloise remembers that Amanda has started to outgrow her dresses and Oliver's starting to outgrow some of his outfits as well. So she's like, let's just go shopping. Let's go shopping. Philip and Oliver try to stay in the carriage, but Eloise is like, no, you gotta come in. Philip, you need to see Amanda because she looks amazing. And then Oliver, we gotta fix your outfit. You don't fit your pants anymore. You gotta come in and we gotta have the dressmaker fix you something. When Philip arrives into the store, Amanda walks out in this beautiful light purple gown. And Philip starts to tear up because he sees his beautiful daughter who is so happy right now. A lot of progressions that he has had as a father in their relationships would not have happened without Eloise. And so he's feeling a wave of emotions. A wave of emotions is going through him. Later that night, Eloise is eating. She lifts up her plate and she sees this tiny slip of paper. She looks to try and find Philip, but Philip, I guess, left a little earlier. She reads the piece of paper and it tells her, I have never been good with words. And then at the bottom tells her to go to Philip's office. When she makes it to the office, she sees there's another letter on the desk. This note says, but it all started with a letter, did it not? That note tells her to go to the sitting room. She goes to the sitting room, she finds another piece of paper, and this one says, if it started with words, it ought to continue with them as well. Go to the front hall. Next one says, there are no words to thank you, and I will tell you the only way I know how. Then it tells her to go to the bedroom. She walks into the bedroom, and on the bed are hundreds of flower petals spelling out the words, I love you, across the bed. Our botanist! We love botany! And that is the end of the first story, but we have 2 epilogues to cover that are real quick. So the first epilogue is a letter to Eloise's daughter, Penelope. We learn that Eloise named their daughter Penelope, which is just so cute. And this letter basically is just telling her how excited she is to have Penelope in their life, and that Eloise and Philip will love her no matter what, and they are so grateful for her. That is that first epilogue. Again, it's just a letter. It's like literally 2.5 pages. Now we have the second epilogue, which is very different from the rest of the epilogues in any of the books previously. We are actually in Amanda's point of view, and she is a little older now, and she meets this boy. She meets this boy named Charles. I do not believe it's the same Charles. I just think Charles is a very common name. I could be wrong, but I think she would have specified if it were the same Charles, because Benedict and Sophie were nowhere to be found. So we're just gonna say it wasn't the same, just a common name in this time period. She meets him, he courts her. Several years later, he proposes to her. Several years later, they are engaged. And she's just having the time of her life in love. And so it was a really cute way just to end out the story and see how Amanda's story progressed as well. And this is officially the end of To Sir Philip With Love. I originally gave this book 3 stars, and I think I'm gonna lower my rating a little bit to 2.5. I just am not the biggest fan of Philip. And honestly, in this book, Eloise doesn't feel like Eloise to me, if that makes any sense. And so I think we're gonna lower it just like a little bit. Anywho, moving forward, let's go into Francesca's book. See y'all when I have a new outfit. New day, new book, and everyone needs to buckle up because this is the most notes I've ever had. While going through these books, I have 21 pages of notes to give to y'all in some perspective. Eloise's book was like literally 13 or 14. This one's 21, so get seated, get prepared. Also maybe get some tissues ready because I may or may not have shed a few tears in the beginning of this book. I did. I'll try not to make y'all as sad as I was. Let's get into it though. As I said yesterday, books 5 and book 6 are 2 of the most intense books in the series, and they deal with a lot of trigger warnings, different ones, but they do deal with a lot. I'm gonna try to be as vague as I possibly can so that y'all will still understand me, but so that the platform will allow this to stay up. Let's get into it though. I'm excited. We don't have too many new characters for y'all, and this is just showing how big the Bridgerton clan is. I will say the part of Michael Stirling has not been casted yet, so I just fan casted him as Jordan Fisher, specifically from Hadestown, because he's beautiful, and I just think that it works. We have 2, they call them the mothers. We have Janet and Helen. I casted them as the little fun ladies from Coraline. Those were their vibes. That's who they're casted as. Now let's get into it. Also, before I begin, the timeline is a little insane, so bear with me. I will fill in the gaps for y'all, so don't be afraid. But we're taking place a little bit before book 4, during book 4, book 5, after book 5. That is why every single time they're like, where's Francesca? She's in Scotland. This is what was going on with her. Actually, the first Bridgerton book that doesn't have a prologue, so we're jumping right into part 1. We are in London, and it is the year 1820, and we are immediately focusing on Michael Stirling. Michael Stirling knows the moment his life was changed forever, and it was when he first laid his eyes upon Francesca Bridgerton. Michael was a rake for the majority of his life. He never wanted to get married. He never found anyone that he truly thought that he might be in love with until he met Francesca. The second he saw her, he was head over heels, saying to himself, you're my soulmate, you're my person, I love you. Unfortunately for Michael, Francesca was married to his cousin. Yes. She was married to his cousin, John Stirling. Now, this is the actual man who they casted as John Stirling. He appears in season 3, so y'all have probably met him at this moment in time if you're caught up on the TV show. Keep that in mind. Michael hid these feelings very well. Nobody knew that he had any sort of romantic feelings toward Francesca. John wasn't even aware, and him and John were so close. When Michael's father passed away, John's family took him in, and John essentially saw Michael as a brother. They were inseparable and they were best friends. Because Michael and John were so close, Michael felt guilt every single time he closed his eyes because all he could think about was how much he wanted John's wife, how much he wanted Francesca Bridgerton. Francesca actually has a title, so let me tell you her title. She is now the Countess of Kilmartin, which is in Scotland. As I said, Michael and John are really close, so they are always hanging out with one another, and since John and Francesca are in love, have a very happy, healthy marriage, they're always hanging out as well, so Michael's kind of their third wheel, but Francesca and John just see Michael as their best friend, and they don't think anything about it. So one day Francesca and John are thinking to themselves, where should we go for our 1-year anniversary? Michael, do you have any ideas? Like, where do you think we should go? What would be the best place for us to go on our 1-year anniversary? And Michael's thinking to himself, okay, yes, maybe y'all should go to Scotland. That could be really cool. That could be a fun trip for you. Francesca looks at Michael and goes, that's a great idea. You should come with us. That would be so much fun. Michael looks at Francesca and says, I have too many things to do. I'm living my aimless life of dissolution. I have no responsibilities. Francesca goes up to him, puts her hand on his arm and says, I wish you wouldn't speak of yourself this way. And Michael's thinking to himself, oh my God, she's touching me. She's touching me. She's touching me. Please stop touching me. You don't know how I feel about you. Please stop. Stop. That is what he's thinking. As he's going through this internal crisis right now, he very unkindly asks, am I to be your project right now? Francesca responds with, we just care about you. And Michael focuses on that word, we. We, not I, not John, we. Further showing that Francesca and John are a unit and they are inseparable, and ooh, it's just like a twist of a knife. It is an unintentional twist of a knife and our boy is suffering. He's suffering. Let's keep going. Michael simply responds with, and I care about you. Now, to anyone listening would just assume that he is talking about Francesca and John together as the unit, the we. But really, Michael's like sneaking in the, I care about you, to Francesca. This is one of the few times he can say it without fear of anyone actually knowing how he feels. Keep note of that. Francesca looks at Michael and says, I think I should introduce you to my sister. Michael just rolls his eyes and goes, I am not marrying Eloise. No, thank you. Do not introduce me to your sister. I've met her before. I'm not going to dance with her. I'm not marrying Eloise. No. No offense, Eloise. John can see that Michael needs some saving from this conversation, so he intervenes and he goes, Francesca, it is such a beautiful day. Why don't we all go for a walk? Francesca's like, yes, of course, that's amazing. I've been a little restless in this house since it's been raining. Like, I need to go outside. Michael agrees to go, and right before they're about to go, John looks at his watch and goes, you know what, I actually can't go. I forgot I have an appointment with Parliament. This is really, really important. Michael, would you mind still escorting Francesca on this walk so she can get out of the house for a little bit? It's completely fine. Just please go take her on a walk. Michael agrees. Him and Francesca are about to go. Francesca runs upstairs to go get her coat. Michael's looking at John, and John is rubbing his temple, and Michael's like, you don't really look good. In fact, you look quite pale, kind of clammy. Are you sure you're okay? Yes, I just have a horrible headache. I think maybe I'll go lie down a little bit before my meeting. In this moment, Francesca rushes down the stairs. She looks at her husband and goes, you really don't look good. You probably need to go lay down. I was just about to do that. I'm gonna have the valet wake me up right before my meeting. That way I'm not late. Beautiful, beautiful, please go get some rest. Headaches are the absolute worst. Love you. Michael and I are gonna go on our walk. Michael's still a little hesitant about going on this walk with Francesca, but the book says, and I quote, that he wasn't strong enough to deny himself an hour in Francesca's presence. He knew in his heart that her presence was all he was ever gonna get, because again, he would never make a move or anything to betray John, because John is basically his brother. He would never do anything like that, and he already feels guilty for feeling the way that he does. But spending an hour in her presence, if that's all he's gonna get, he's gonna take it. We are now focusing on Francesca, and she thinks that it's so funny that one of her closest friends in the world is a man. Like, she never would have expected this. She also reflects on her time when John was courting her, and she thinks one of the main things that made her attracted to him was that he was getting her out of the Bridgerton house, because she loves her siblings, but they are so loud and in your business and always need attention. And she tends to keep to herself, like she is okay in the silence, and John really understood that. This isn't to say that she wasn't in love with him either, like she was head over heels in love with John, and that was another big appeal of marrying him, obviously. Francesca says that John is her kindred spirit. He understands her, he anticipates her, he completes her. She even mentions about how when she first met him, she felt like she was a piece of a puzzle that finally found where she fit in. She also loved John's relationship with Michael, and she loved how Michael never envied John. Now, John is the one with all the money, with the title, with everything, and he has never been jealous of John at all, except for the wife, but no one knows about that, obviously. And so Francesca has a lot of respect for Michael, because many people in Michael's shoes would resent John for this, even though it's not even John's fault. Francesca also wants Michael to find love because he is such a generous person and he is so deserving of love. And so she's kind of taking him under her wing, even though he doesn't want her to try and find him someone that he can spend the rest of his life with, so that he can find someone that'll make him feel the way that John makes her feel. It's a sticky situation for sure. So while on their walk, Francesca and Michael play their special game, and it is called Tell Me Something Wicked. So when they are alone, Francesca will look at our rake Michael and just say, tell me something wicked, tell me something John would not approve of, what have you been up to? He tells her that he actually can't this week because he hasn't done anything to report on. He then tells her that they should start making their way back home. And she responds with, you're probably just wanting to get me back home so that you can go back because there's probably someone in your bed right now. Specifically, someone wrapped up in your sheets in your bed right now. Michael turns and gives her a smirk and says, you wanted to hear something wicked. Do you want to know the color of my sheets? She doesn't back down from this response like many people in this time period would, because this is a very improper conversation going on, but she leans into it and she goes, as long as it's not yellow, like please tell me it's not yellow, that is putrid, no, no, no. Michael waits a little bit, making Francesca think that she won this game until he says, red. What? Red what? Red sheets. My sheets are red. This makes Francesca blush instantly and she just starts laughing saying, I can't believe you told me that, what? And Michael says, you asked, you're lucky I don't tell your husband on you. Francesca replies with, John would never worry over me. Michael replies with, I know, it's the only reason I tease you, you would never stray from John, and that is something that I admire about you. Francesca simply replies with, I love your cousin. They get back to the house and Michael tells her that he must go, and Francesca just says, that's just because you want to do something wicked right now, you don't have to leave. In this very moment, the valet comes down the stairs to tell Francesca that he knocked 2 times very loudly on the door, And John never answered, so he must just be in a really deep sleep. Francesca doesn't think much about this, and she tells the valet, of course, thank you so much for letting me know. I'll go wake him up, and then y'all can head that way. Michael says, oh, if John hasn't left yet, I'll just catch a ride with him since I walked here anyway. I'll make my life easier. Francesca says, oh, great idea. Let me go wake him up. Good to go. This is the place of our first trigger warning. This is trigger warning for loss of a spouse. This part in the book was really, really sad. This is actually where I cried, not gonna lie, in chapter 2, so I'm not going in depth on that. Just know that Francesca goes to wake him up, and he does not wake up. Michael runs upstairs knowing something is wrong. John has passed. Let's fast forward one day. Michael is now talking to, and I'm gonna read this off the screen because it is a really long title and I cannot remember it. He is talking to the appointee to the Committee of Privileges of the House of the Lords. Because remember, John had a title, and so this title would go to Michael. Thinks that this is way too soon and it should be happening right now, but the appointee is telling him this is how things are done. We have to get ahead of this. We have to get going. And honestly, Michael is just tuning this man out because he is grieving. This was essentially his brother. He is not okay and he just needs a breather. So he's really not paying attention to the appointee until this man says, was Francesca pregnant? If Francesca is pregnant, this is going to change our whole entire scenario. We need to know immediately. Also, he mentions that if Francesca is pregnant, whenever the baby is about to be born, someone from this committee is going to have to be in the room because apparently baby switching was an issue back then. If you're like, baby switching, what? That just means that sometimes people would give birth to a girl and they would try and switch it out for a boy so that they would still get the title and all of the money. As I was saying, Michael is really tuning him out. But this man just keeps repeating, we have to get ahead of this. We have to figure it out. We need to know, is she pregnant? Is she pregnant? And Michael snaps, looks at this man and goes, she was just widowed yesterday. Give her a break. Give her a break. He tells Michael that if Michael will not ask, then he simply will have to. Michael lunges at this point, pushes this man up against the wall and says, you will not talk to her at all. You will have no communication with her. You will not approach Lady Kilmartin. You will not even breathe the same air as her. The man simply leaves, but he says, I will be back tomorrow. We have to find an answer for this. Michael is so distraught. He doesn't know what to do. He has immediately handled this Earl title, but also it's in limbo because if Francesca is indeed pregnant, it technically would go to her child, depending on the gender, but also he doesn't want any of this. He never wanted what John had. And while all these things are being thrown at him, all he can think about is how Francesca is and how Francesca is doing. Mind you, Francesca is 22 years old. She's 22. While he is having all these thoughts, Francesca actually appears right behind him and tells Michael, we have to tell your mother and his mother what happened. They're in Scotland, so there's no way they would have heard the news by now. We have to write to them and tell them what happened to John. They have to know. As I've mentioned several times, Michael is wrecked with guilt right now because he is coveted after Francesca for years. And he has always wanted Francesca, but not like this. Not at the cost of losing John. And so while Francesca is talking, this is all Michael can focus on. He just keeps thinking, did I do this? Did I wish that I could have you so badly that I lost John? Is this my fault? He is wrecked with guilt. And all of a sudden Francesca says something that just snaps Michael back to reality. Francesca looks at Michael and she says, I'm pregnant. We're fast forwarding a little bit. We have learned that Janet and Helen, Janet was John's mother and Helen is Michael's mother. They have moved into the Kilmartin home so that Francesca is not alone. During this time, Michael has grown more and more distant, and this is devastating to Francesca because she already lost John and now she's feeling like she's losing Michael as well. And again, Michael is her closest friend. So she's lost her husband and she feels like her best friend is slipping away from her and she doesn't know what she did. She also says that during this time, all she wants is him. She doesn't want her mother. She doesn't want his mothers. She doesn't want her sisters. She just wants Michael because Michael, to some extent, knows what she's going through. And he won't talk to her or acknowledge her because he's also grieving and feeling so guilty, but she doesn't know of the guilt because he's never informed her and he's definitely not going to now. It's so messy. Janet is in the same room with Francesca and she asks Francesca, have you seen Michael recently? And Francesca very sadly goes, no, he doesn't really come around much anymore. And Janet just responds with, well, he misses John. I do too. It just must be really difficult for him right now. Francesca is in shock that this lady even brought this up and is saying this because she's like, I just lost my husband. I understand what he is going through. I am also grieving. Why would you say this to me? But you know what? Janet don't stop. Janet keeps on going. And Janet says, I'm not saying it isn't difficult for you, but Just think about the fact that Michael still doesn't even know where he stands. He won't even know if he's an earl for 6 more months until you have the baby. Like, this is too much. This is too much for him. Again, here's the timestamp. You do whatever makes you comfortable. Let's get into it. Also, I'm not going in depth on this, just so everyone at home is aware. Francesca decides to leave this conversation that she's having with Janet, and as soon as she stands up, Janet turns white as a sheet. Is on the chair that Francesca was just sitting on. There is a red stain. We're gonna pan to Michael real quick. He is staying away from the house. He is so guilty over his feelings and over what happened to John that he is not going near the house one bit. And even though he couldn't bring himself to be around Francesca right now, Michael did make sure that all of her affairs were in order, so that is what he was handling in this time while he was away. While he is handling this, his footman comes in with an urgent letter saying, you need to read this. I've been told it is very, very important. Please read this right now. Michael opens up the letter and it is from Helen, which is his mother, telling him come quickly. Francesca just lost the baby. Michael is now rushing to the Kilmartin house, and as soon as he is there, it is now hitting him. I'm now the Earl. I was not prepared for this at all. I always just thought that it was going to be John assuming this role. I've been a rake my whole life, not taking any responsibility. And I'm now the Earl. When his mother turns the corner and finds Michael, the first thing Michael asks is, how is she? She responds with, in shock, crying. They're very short during this time. Like, they really don't express too much emotion, and I'm not sure why, but anywho. Michael says, well, that's to be expected, and Helen goes, she just won't stop. I was like, what? What do you mean she just won't stop? She just won't stop crying. Helen also goes on to say that Violet has showed up to the Kilmartin house and is trying to get her to move back into the Bridgerton house so that they can take care of her. The first thing Michael asks is, what does Francesca want? Is this something that she is wanting? Helen goes, we're not really sure. The doctor says that she can't be moved for a few days anyway, but we called you because you're now the Earl of Kilmartin. It's entirely up to you what's going to happen to her, but also Francesca's been asking for you. When Helen tells Michael this, Michael just says, I can't. You can't. You have to. What do you mean you can't? You need to go in there right now. She's your friend. You can't just abandon her. She wasn't mine in the first place to abandon. She needs her friends. No. Not yet, not now. And he just leaves. Now, a new chapter and month has passed and Michael is miserable. He just keeps thinking about the fact that everything that was once John's is now his except for Francesca. And Michael intends to keep it that way because he feels like if he makes a move on Francesca or even professes his feelings, that it's just a slap in the face to his cousin. So he will never go there. Francesca comes to Michael's house and tells him that she needs to see him. She tells him that she misses him, and other than her husband, he was her closest friend. She doesn't know what's going on and she needs him. She finally stops beating around the bush and goes, why do you keep avoiding me? He lies and goes, I don't know. She looks at him and she goes, you were supposed to be my friend too. I needed you. I still do. He tells her, you don't need me. You have your mother. You have all of your sisters. That's not what I want right now. If I wanted them, I would be with them right now. I need my friend. Francesca shakes her head and she's like, I should not have come here. He shakes his head in return saying, no, you're right to come here. Let me make you some tea. Please just stay. Let's keep talking. After a while, they've calmed down a little bit. They're having a nice conversation. Francesca looks at him and she goes, you can't keep going on like this. You can't keep ignoring me. And before he even gets a chance to say, she went, the baby would have been yours in a way too. This makes him go so pale. And Francesca just keeps on, it would have needed a father and it would have been you. You have so many brothers that could have taken on this responsibility. None that knew John. It would have been you. He whispers to her and he goes, why are you telling me this? I'm not John. The baby was not mine. I can't be what you want me to be. I'm not John. I won't take his place. I can't take his place. I'm not John. He is actually shaking her at this point. He just keeps repeating, I'm not John. I'm not John. And she's like, what is going on? What is going on? And after a while, he realizes what was going on. He stops. He looks at her. He says that he's sorry. Francesca shakes her head and she's like, I don't think we should see each other for a while. And she leaves. He doesn't move, doesn't say anything after this point. He's just kind of there. After this moment, Michael realizes that he can't stay here. As long as Francesca is not aware of his feelings, he can't be around her. He can't do it. He decides to go to India. Part 2, we now have a time jump and we are now 4 years in the future. Since Michael never got married, Francesca got to keep her title and she also got to run the estate and everything that came with it since he was in India. She took this as the greatest gift he could have ever given her because it took her mind off of John. It gave her something to do and it gave her a purpose. She's also come to terms that she really wants a baby. This has taken her a long time to admit and just come to terms that she's not betraying John by wanting a baby. It's not going to make her love for him any less less than it was. But please remember the time period. She cannot have a baby without being married. So this means that she will have to travel back home and she will have to be a part of this upcoming season. She normally goes back to London in April, but she's decided to go early so that she can be there for the start of the season. She's also deciding that she needs to stop wearing the half mourning colors, which are gray and purple. She will now be back to wearing blue. Take a mental note of that. It'll come into play later. She could also be wearing pinks or yellows, just something bright that shows everyone she's no longer mourning. By her no longer wearing those certain colors, it is just showing the town that she is ready to be back on the marriage market. That is all that means. Michael is also returning to London at this time. He enjoyed his time in India, but it really didn't make him happy. It wasn't what he was longing for, but he did need time away from everything. He lived in peace knowing around every corner Francesca wasn't going to be there. He didn't have to always confront his feelings, and that things could die down. And in his mind, he's thinking, you know what, maybe when I see her next time, I will love her still. Maybe that is gone and that is past, and that is all I can wish for. But he's also really happy that he decided to go to London early in the year because he knows Francesca doesn't go till April, so there's no way they'll run into each other. Remember, she's about to be back on the marriage market, so she's deciding to go early as well. Back to Francesca at the Kilmartin house, she hears a weird noise in the middle of the night, so she decides to go investigate it, even though she literally has nothing to protect herself, but she goes to investigate it, and she sees Michael. And she is like, what on earth are you doing here? And he's like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting you to be in London. In fact, I was trying to avoid you, and you know what, I'm looking at you, and I'm still in love. I'm still in love with you. All he can say when he looks at Francesca is, you're not normally in London until April. How do you know that? My mother's just really detailed in the letters that she writes to me. They talk for a little bit until saying goodnight to one another, and once again, as I just mentioned, Michael knows for sure that he's still in love with Francesca, and at this point he knows it's never going away. The next morning, Michael wakes up and Francesca is nowhere to be found, but he does figure that she is probably having like tea with her mother, and so he makes his way down to where Violet Bridgerton is staying. He sees Violet, she gives him a very warm welcome. He's very flirty with her and she loves it, she lives for it. Francesca walks outside and she's like, are you flirting with my mother? What are you doing? And he just responds with, I have traveled the world and honestly there's no one else I'd rather flirt with than Violet. She's amazing. And Violet again is just soaking the attention up and she goes, you must stay for dinner. Please stay for dinner. And he agrees. He's like, of course, I would love to. He also tells Violet that Francesca has been a great deal of help to him while he's been in India. Francesca has been the Countess for 6 years, but in reality, the last 4 years, she's been acting as the Earl and taking care of his estate, and he could not be more grateful for her. About an hour later, Francesca and Michael decide to go on a walk together through Hyde Park. Francesca asks Michael if he is wanting to take a seat in Parliament just like John was, and Michael says that he is thinking about it. So naturally, Francesca's like, well, then you're gonna have to get married. Have you thought about that? Is that something you are after? He really doesn't respond, but he lets her go on, and she jokes about who he could marry, which is kind of reminding him of how him, John, and her relationship was before John passed. But we do get a snippet into the timeline here. Even though they gave us the date in the beginning of the book, who on earth is gonna remember whether something happened in 1820 or 1822? Like, no. So, here's our timeline. She mentions that Penelope Featherington is single and that they could be a match. This means that this book is taking place right before the events of book 4 / in the beginning of book 4. So that's where we're at. So this means that Penelope and Colin are not together, but this also means that Eloise and Philip are not together at this point. Michael looks at Francesca and says that she will not be his matchmaker. No, we've been through this before. No. Talk for a little bit and Francesca pauses. Michael can see her hesitation and he asks her what is she thinking about. Francesca just looks at him and she says, I want a baby. Chapter 7 starts right where we left off and Michael is in shock. Michael literally cannot say anything. She can see from the look on his face that he's so surprised by this, and she goes, I don't understand why you're so surprised. I am 26, almost 27. I feel like it's natural for me to want a kid. And Michael responds with, of course, but shouldn't you want a husband first? Well, obviously, why do you think I'm back in London so early? I'm here for the season. Do you have anyone in mind? No, not yet, but I'm pretty sure once the season actually starts, some people will start to pop up for me, and if they don't, I have brothers and these brothers have friends, so I should be able to find someone. She turns to Michael, and for the first time, the strangest thing starts to happen. She can't stop looking at his eyes. She notices that he actually has these charcoal flecks in his eyes, and then her gaze goes down to his mouth. All of a sudden she realizes what she's doing, and she's like, I gotta go. I have got to get out of here. Bye, Michael. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Got a blast. The only thing she can think of to get out of the situation is I have an appointment at the dressmaker. I've got to go to the dressmaker. I am no longer in half mourning, can't wear gray or purple, I got an appointment. Michael just looks at her, not really thinking anything of this, and he goes, ooh, you should make sure that they put you in blue. Do y'all remember earlier how she was talking about the color blue? He remembered that, remembered how great she looked in that color. And that stood out to him all those years ago. So she's freaking out even more. She's really like, I've got to go. Goodbye. Thank you for the walk. See you soon. Later that day, Francesca goes to visit Violet again, and they honestly have a really good conversation. Francesca looks at her very earnestly and asks, why did you never remarry after Dad passed? Violet kind of takes in a deep breath and she goes, you know, not a single one of my kids has ever asked me that before. And now Francesca is rattling her brain thinking, we must have asked you that at some point, and then coming to the realization, no. We never did. Violet goes on to explain that Edmund left all of her financial affairs in order. She was already a little older and she had 8 kids at that point, so she felt very content in the life that she was living. Francesca responds with, John did the same thing for me. He made sure all of my affairs were in order and that I will be perfectly fine for the rest of my life. Violet goes, you were 22 years old when it happened to you. That is completely different than how I was. One cannot expect you to stay single for the rest of your life, and I had kids. You don't even have kids yet. Francesca responds with, I can't shake the feeling that I'm doing something wrong by him, that I'm dishonoring him in our relationship together by moving forward. Violet simply looks at her and says, John would want you to be happy. He loved you with every fiber of his being, and he would want you to be happy. Francesca says, I'm not looking for someone to replace John. I'm not even looking for someone that I love as much as I love John or anything close to that. I've accepted that, and I have accepted that and have come to terms. It just feels wrong to marry someone for less. Think about it like this. You won't find someone like John, but you still might find someone who suits you perfectly in a different way, and that is okay. Francesca looks at her mom and says, you didn't. True. But I didn't look at all. Do you wish that you would have? I really don't know. I already had 8 kids at that point, so it's not like I wanted another. And so Violet's kind of laughing, trying to lighten the mood a little bit. Francesca looks at her once again and goes, I want a baby. I thought you did. Why didn't you ever ask me then? Because, my dear, you are so much different than all of your other sisters. If you were Eloise or Daphne, I would have just straight up asked you. But ever since you were a kid, you've always kept to yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know to give you your space and your privacy. We love Violet. That is such an amazing answer. Francesca asked her mom a final question, and that is, if I don't find someone I love to marry, can I marry someone that I just like? Violet shrugs and tells her, you are the only one who can decide that. While they're having their heart-to-heart, what is Michael up to at this point in time? He's losing his mind. He is not doing too hot, ladies and gents. He's really not okay. He actually starts kicking things with his boot, and then he looks down and he goes, whose shoes are these? These are not my shoes. Whose shoes am I wearing? And he realizes that he's wearing John's shoes. He immediately calls his valet and he says, I can never wear anything of John's again. Do not lay these clothes out for me. They are his. I'm not wearing the late Earl's clothes. No, no, no. The valet is like, yes, sir, of course, we will never have that happen again. I will put them in a completely different room. I am so, so sorry. The valet leaves Michael, and Michael is just struggling with the fact that Francesca is ready to get married again. She wants a baby, and he is now thinking about the fact that she is the Countess of Kilmartin. He is the Earl of Kilmartin. So this means that he not only will have to watch her potentially fall in love with someone, but he might have to advise this process for her. He might be the one in charge of it to come up with a dowry for her and firsthand give her away. And that's too much for him. It's too much. So as I said, he's not doing well. Chapter 8 actually starts off with a letter Francesca wrote to Michael, but she never sent it. And there are a lot of words crossed out during this letter, but the ones that really, really are important is she kept marking out, I miss you. So she'd write a little bit, say, I miss you, cross it out, and then the next line would be, I miss John. Write a little bit, say, I miss you, cross it out, keep going on. And that's why she never sent it, is because it kept saying, I miss you, to Michael. And this was in the past, this is while he was in India. Just something to keep note of. It's time for dinner at the Bridgerton house. All of the ladies are there ready to eat. Violet is like, where's Michael? Which then gets Francesca thinking, he did accept. I don't understand where he is. This is so unlike him. He is so punctual. Where is he? And so she decides to go get him. She looks at her mom and she says, I will go get him, or at least figure out where he is. I'll be right back once I know what's going on. Thank you for dinner. I will go figure this out. When she gets to the Kilmartin house, she hears Michael and she can tell that he does not feel good. And so she goes into his room and she sees that he is not okay. He explains to her he actually contracted malaria while he was in India. And honestly, Francesca does not know what to do with this information or how to even help him, but she can see that he is struggling. He tells her that he calls these moments his attacks. And so they last about a week to 2 weeks. If he's unlucky, maybe 3. They go away, several months they'll come later, and it's just horrible for this moment, but again, it'll pass. It doesn't leave him while he's about to drift off to sleep, and he looks at her again right before he's about to fall asleep, and he says, "It's better with you here." He wakes up feeling a whole lot better, and he wakes up before Francesca, and he sees that Francesca did not move. She fell asleep very uncomfortably in the chair right across from him to make sure that he would be okay. And he honestly takes in this moment because he's never been around Francesca first thing in the morning, so he's never seen, honestly, her a little disheveled, not with it, not put together. And so he's kind of soaking in this moment and just seeing how beautiful she truly is. She then wakes up, sees that he's okay. She is so thankful. She can see that he's still a little groggy, but at least better than yesterday. You cannot tell anyone. Please, please, please do not tell anyone. If anyone knows that the Earl has malaria, they will look at him differently and his title won't mean as much as it does, truly. And he also will struggle while on the marriage market. She tells Michael that Violet is expected to stop by this morning, but she'll figure out what to tell Violet so she'll have no clue that he has malaria. And Michael is really touched by this moment, saying, "You would lie to your family for me?" Francesca responds with, "Of course, if that's what you want, I will do that for you." She does indeed hide this from her family. She still goes to her family's house every day, but she makes sure to go check on Michael. And her family sees this and they're like, "Why are you going to hang out with him / see him so often? What on earth is going on?" Because again, they don't know that he's sick. And so she's like, "You know what, nothing is going on. I just gotta go. I actually need to go check on him one more time. We're just hanging out, no big deal. I will be back." Violet follows her to the door and she asks Francesca, "Are you and the Earl in some form of a relationship with one another? Are you guys having a torrid affair?" And Francesca's so shocked that people would assume that she's having an affair with Michael that she's so flustered and just keeps going, "He's just under the weather. No, we're not having an affair. He's just under the weather." And she skedaddles out of there to go talk to Michael because she needs to tell him what people are thinking. Let me also just add that Violet does not believe Francesca at all. She wholeheartedly thinks that Francesca and Michael are having an affair. Wholeheartedly believes that. Francesca runs to Michael and she tells Michael, "You have 2 choices." Michael's very confused, but before he can even get a word in, Francesca's like, "My mother is coming over this morning." Michael says, "Okay." "Well, she thinks we're having an affair, Michael." And Michael literally laughs, which is just making Francesca get so red in the face. Like, I'm talking tomato level at this point. She is just blushing up a storm. But Michael responds with, "Okay, what are our choices? Tell me our 2 choices." Francesca, as I said, is very flustered, and so she's forgotten the choices that she laid out for him. She's completely forgotten. Doesn't remember them at all. He tells Francesca, "Just calm down. It's us. We've always been this way. If Violet shows up, she will see that we are still the same old friends that we've always been. Nothing has changed. Take a breather. It's okay." Francesca agrees and keeps saying, "You're right, you're right, you're right. I mean, could you imagine?" Yes. Yes, he could indeed imagine. Some may say it's what he's dreamed of for years. So yes, he could imagine this, but that's besides the point. Michael keeps telling Francesca to calm down and she responds with, "Do you not understand what I'm telling you? This is crazy." And now he's offended. He is actually offended and he looks at her and he goes, "You know, a lot of women would be very happy to be in an affair with me." Her jaw falls to the floor and then she quickly closes it and he goes, "Some women might actually think it's a privilege to be in an affair with me." Francesca goes, "I do not wish to hear of your exploits. I do not wish to hear of them. Did we not used to play a game? What was it called? Oh yes. When I Was Wicked?" Her face is so red right now. She doesn't know what to say. He rises saying that he needs to get changed and she runs. She runs away. Guys, you will see as this book goes forward that she is a runner. She is a track star. She is never staying in one place. She flees. We also learned that Violet actually never shows up, so all this stress was for nothing, but the reason she doesn't show up is because Colin has just returned from his travels to Greece, which officially puts the timeline smack dab at the beginning of romancing Mr. Bridgerton when Colin is about to start romancing Penelope. That is our timeline. Later that night, Janet and Helen finally make it all the way from Scotland. They're now in the Kilmartin home, and Michael decides that it's a good time to tell them about his malaria. They agree to keep this a secret, and because of this, they're also talking about Violet's birthday party coming up and how he will be a great suitor and everyone this season will just be all over him, and hopefully he'll find a wife by the end of it. Michael is getting up to leave, but before he does, him and Francesca make eyes across the room, and they just have a moment of understanding. Just a silent moment with one another where everything is kind of understood and in peace. And this immediately freaks Francesca out because she's only had those moments with John before where she felt like he just completely understood her and knew exactly what she was thinking. And the fact that she's now having this with Michael, oh no, no, no. Oh no, no, no. But who has time for a freak out when it's time for a birthday party? Let's celebrate our queen, Violet Bridgerton. Let me tell you something, Janet and Helen were completely right about Michael. Michael is the catch of the season and he hasn't even arrived yet. But people are flooding to Francesca going, when's Michael showing up? What's Michael like? What do we think about Michael? And Francesca is at her wit's end. She tries to walk away and then Lady Danbury just swoops in out of nowhere because y'all know how that lady goes. I actually forgot to put her up here. So I guess she didn't swoop into our wall. But other than that, she comes up and she asks Francesca about Michael, asking, where's that Earl of yours? He's not my Earl. He's not here. Lady Danbury simply responds with, well, he's more your Earl than anyone else's. Before Francesca can say anything else, Lady Danbury turns to her and says, you know what? It's actually time for me to pester another Bridgerton at this moment. I see Colin. I'm gonna go mess with Colin. This is the beginning of the fourth book. This is literally the first chapter. So I'm assuming that Colin and Penelope had that funny moment over in Eclair right now. Francesca decides to go over to Eloise, Sophie, and Kate. We love them, and I'm so happy that they're all in this book. When Francesca gets over to them, she says, if one more person brings up Michael to me, I think my head will explode. And they're all standing there like, okay, what else can we talk about? What else are we gonna say? And Sophie just goes, oh my goodness, you're in blue. You're out of half mourning. How are you feeling? This is so exciting. Does this mean you are ready to remarry? Francesca simply says, yes. Yes. Eloise goes, oh, there's Michael. Michael's finally showed up. Kate looks and goes, I've forgotten how handsome he is. Sophie nods her and goes, I agree, he is so handsome. Francesca looks at them and goes, you're both married. Eloise pipes in and goes, since I'm just a 28-year-old Spencer, does this mean I can pipe in on how beautiful he is? Because I will. Francesca looks at Eloise and goes, he is the last man that you would ever want to marry. Remember how in chapter 1 I told y'all to make a mental note of Francesca trying to get Michael to marry or just court Eloise? She's now completely changed her mind on that. This is a completely different reaction to that. Francesca, trying to change the subject, goes, do we not have anything else to talk about other than Michael? And all three of our ladies in unison go, nope. Eloise looks at her and goes, you should go talk to him. Go talk to him. Y'all are friends. Just go say hi. Francesca responds with, why would I even do that when there are hundreds of other men I would rather speak to? I know all of the men here, and there are maybe 3 I would be willing to talk to. Michael's your best bet. Go say hi. Sophie pipes in and goes, do you want one of us to come with you? No, I can handle Michael, but first I must go handle myself. And so she scurries away. I told y'all she's a runner. And all 3 of the women look, and Eloise just goes, coward, coward. We're now panned to Michael, and Michael noticed Francesca the second he walked into the ballroom. He noticed immediately that she was in this stunning blue gown and a brand new hairstyle. He also noticed the instant that she left the ballroom. Michael made note that he would know as soon as she entered the ballroom again, because for some reason it is like a sixth sense that he knows where Francesca is at all times. He cannot get away from her, and this is one of the reasons he went to India, because of this little sixth sense that he has towards her. It has also been this way for Michael since the moment he met Francesca. Michael realized that even though they talked about her getting out of half mourning colors the other day, this is the first time she's actually worn them to the town, and it hits him like a ton of bricks. She is out of mourning. She is on the marriage market. She will probably get married by the end of this season because she is gorgeous and stunning, and who wouldn't want to marry her? Michael looks across the ballroom, sees Francesca, and he sees that no one's talking to her, and he's baffled by this fact, and he decides, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to her. And so he makes his way through the ballroom, and mind you, he's on one side, she's completely across the room. So he literally like pushes through people to get to her. When she sees that he's making his way towards her, Francesca actually starts to meet him halfway. She jokes that she finally gets to talk to the merry rake after he's been talking to a dozen women. And Michael thinks to himself, I don't care that the town calls me the merry rake, or that the town knows that I'm a rake, or that they think that I am a crazy womanizer. But hearing Francesca say that feels like acid right now. And I do not like that. That's what's going on in his mind. Well, now Francesca, is that what you actually think of me? He smirks. She goes, well, of course not. I think you're one of the finest men I know. But I do think you are foolish and are going to break so many hearts, more than I can actually count. Francesca, it's not your job to count them. That's true, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to. Why? Why is that? Because I'm not going to be able to stop myself. Several seconds of silence have passed. Francesca looks at him and goes, you should dance. You should dance right now. Michael goes, with you? Sure, we can dance, but I really just meant with someone that is eligible for you to marry. You know, Felicity Featherington is over there, and I really don't think that she would end up falling in love with you, so I feel like that'd be a perfect match for you since you're not looking for that. Of course, heaven forbid I fall in love. Is that what you're actually after, is love? I have no idea, but if you excuse me, I'm gonna go ask Felicity Featherington to dance. She argues, going, don't be this way. What way am I doing? I'm doing exactly what you asked me to do. I am asking Felicity to dance with me. But you're angry with me. Of course not. I've just merely accepted the fact that you're right, you're always right, and you know best, and I should have listened to you years ago. She gasps and says, I've got to go. I need to go right now. Okay, go. There are many men here tonight, and I could find a husband. You should. I might find one tonight. You might. He says it just like that. Very tight-lipped, very angry. You might. That's exactly how he says it, or at least how I imagined it. Now let's move forward in time. We're gonna go one day later. We see that Francesca really did count the amount of hearts that he broke last night. Every time he talked to a woman, she did a little tally mark in her head. She doesn't know why she did this, but she just couldn't stop. As soon as Francesca wakes up, she goes to the drawing room and she sees that it is covered in flowers. There are bouquets of flowers everywhere she looks. Everywhere. And they are all for her. She is this season's incomparable, really impressive since she is a widow at the age of 26, almost 27. Michael enters the room and is so confused as to what's going on. He jokes saying, are we opening up a flower shop? We really could, but no, these are all for Francesca. He is immediately in a bad mood, picks up a bouquet of roses and goes, roses? Who on earth would send roses? I don't care, but I like roses. You're not gonna marry a man who sends you roses, are you? No. She banters back and forth with him for a little bit until Michael looks and goes, it's final. You're not marrying a man who sends you roses. No, end of story. Francesca notes that she should be annoyed by this, but instead she just goes, okay, I won't marry a man who sends me roses. When Janet goes upstairs to get Helen to show her how many flowers are in our drawing room, Francesca turns to Michael and smugly asks, are you jealous? He turns and he goes, whoa, what? And Francesca is immediately flustered and goes, no, not over me, but by me. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, did you not see all the flowers that I just got? That means I probably have more suitors than you have girls fawning over you. Michael looks at her and says, a man would be a fool not to want to marry you. He also takes this moment to apologize to her over last night, saying that that was just a really dumb argument, they shouldn't have had it, and that he is sorry. Michael leaves the house, and while he's out, he runs into Sir Fowler. Note this man for later. We don't like him, but note him. Sir Fowler tells Michael that he is aware that Francesca is back on the market, that she is no longer half mourning. Michael in this moment feels like he has been kicked in the chest, but he just tightly nods his head. Yep, that's true. Sir Fowler asks, will you be the one to dower her? Michael, again, feeling like he has been kicked in the chest, goes, the Stirling family will take care of her. We always have, and we always will. Sir Phillip goes, I asked her brothers the same question. They're also willing to dower her. This is amazing news for you. With 2 dowries, she will be off your hands before you even know it. Not the thing to say to Michael, that's for sure. Michael also realizes that she could choose Michael to be the one to take care of everything. She could tell Michael, since he is the nearest male relative with the same last name as her currently, that she prefer him to oversee everything in the marriage process, that she prefer him to give her away, which is like Michael's worst nightmare. And so he's just like not happy. This is also how Michael's entire day went. Literally, men just kept coming up, asking him questions about Francesca. Lord Hardwick comes up, and we don't like him either because he sits down and he says something so vulgar that I'm not gonna repeat to you, because I will not say it, because that's just rude. But he says it about Francesca to Michael, thinking that Michael's gonna think that this is a joke. Michael lunges for him, grabs him by the neck, and is like, you will not go near her. No matter what, you will not go near her. In fact, he says you will not even utter her name. Everyone that was looking around, not just Hardwick, everybody looking around was nodding their head like, But as he is leaving, who does he run into? Colin Bridgerton. Who watched all of that go down? Colin Bridgerton. Colin looks at Michael and goes, you should just marry her. I beg your pardon? Excuse me? Marry her. It seems simple enough to me, Michael. Just marry her. To whom are you referring to? Do we really have to play this game? You know what I'm talking about. I can't marry Francesca. Why? There are no laws against it. Why can't you marry her? She was married to my cousin. Again, there are no laws against it. Why can't you marry her? Also, she has to marry someone. And if you aren't the one to marry her, she could end up marrying someone who treats her horribly. Michael is stunned in this moment because as soon as he's about to respond to Colin, he realizes that he is about to flat out say, I want to marry her, which he has never said out loud before. He stops himself before he says it, but he almost says it to her brother nonetheless. He doesn't, but he almost does. We are now fast forwarding 1 week from this talk with Colin. We are now at the Berwick ball. We see that Michael is looking at Francesca from a distance. Helen, which is his mother by the way, comes up to him and goes, she looks beautiful, doesn't she? Of course she does. Green really suits her. He just nods, You should go dance with her. I'm sure that I will eventually. If you don't go now, her dance card will fill up. You should go dance with her. Well, mother, if I went to go dance with her right now, who would be dancing with you? And so he takes his mother's hand and they go do a dance. After this dance is done, he looks to go find Francesca and he can't find her, so he starts wandering around a little bit trying to find her. He sees that she's out towards the garden, and before he goes out there, he doesn't really want to burst in, so he just kind of stands outside the door eavesdropping. And he also notes that this is not something that he's ever done with John and Francesca, and so the fact that he's doing it now is also surprising to him. After a few minutes while he's listening, he hears Francesca shout the word no. And as soon as Michael hears that, he is immediately out the door into the garden. This is a little heavy, ladies and gents, but we're now gonna pan to Francesca. As I told y'all, I will be vague. We're panning to Francesca. She actually decided to go outside of the garden with Sir Fowler. Do y'all remember Sir Fowler? I told you to take a note of him because we don't like him. We don't. Sir Fowler is the type of man who really doesn't understand the word no. And right before Francesca is about to knee him in the groin, he's on the ground. She doesn't even know what happened, but he is on the ground, and we see that Michael has pummeled him and is literally holding him on the ground saying, it doesn't feel good to be trapped, now does it? Michael also makes Sir Fowler apologize to Francesca. Before Francesca leaves the garden, she turns to Michael, she tells him thank you, but she also says, how did you even know I was out here? He doesn't say anything, and so she just goes, were you watching me? I'm always watching you, Francesca. And genuinely, that is all she can think of for the rest of the night. She goes home immediately after this happens at the ball, and that's all she can think of. Helen and Janet come home. They tell her that Michael went out to the club for a little bit. Francesca figured this was going to happen because she figured he was going to avoid her, but she stayed up. She stayed up in her room waiting until she could hear him come home. As soon as she heard him, she opened her bedroom door and went out into the hallway so that she could talk to him. She goes, I feel like I didn't properly thank you for tonight, so thank you. For what? He asks. For coming to my aid, Michael. He then excuses himself, but Francesca grabs his arm and goes, why are you so angry at me? Francesca, what are you talking about? Why are you so angry at me? I don't understand what I did. I'm not angry at you. I'm just tired and I want to go to bed. Michael literally lifts her hand off of him and goes, I'm going to bed now. She responds with, no, you can't. And she follows him into his bedroom. She asks him, is it because I want to remarry? I'm so sorry. I love John, but I can't just be alone for the rest of my life. I want a kid. And so she keeps just repeating that over and over and over again. But Michael finally notices that this is a moment that he feels like he could actually kiss her, and he thinks he's going to. He can see that she's open to it, because y'all, I didn't mention this, but like they're standing real close to one another, like real close. And so they do kiss. They do. They have a moment. They kiss for a bit. It starts to escalate a little bit, but she stops and she goes, I can't. He looks to her and he goes, okay, then please leave my room. Like, please get out of here if you can. Please leave. Now, as I mentioned, our girl likes to run away. So she runs to her room. The next morning she runs to her mother. And then she immediately runs to Scotland. She's out of here, she's gone. Before Francesca ran away to Scotland, she left Michael a letter saying, it was wrong, please forgive me. And Michael is so baffled over this, thinking, I kissed you. Why did you flee / why are you apologizing to me when I kissed you? Like, what on earth, Francesca? And he is so confused at this moment in time, he decides that he needs to completely clear his head. And so he goes out that night. But once again, who is he running into? Colin. Colin looks at him and goes, I understand my sister is now in Scotland. What are you going to do? What am I going to do about what, Colin? About my sister. Of course, Scotland's actually not that far away. They don't say anything for a second. Colin nods his head and goes, if you don't want to marry her, don't marry her. She might say no. I have found that women often say no the first time you propose to them, but if you keep asking, they're going to say yes. Don't fret. Colin, how many people have you proposed to? Oh, just one, but I did it this afternoon and she fell out of the carriage. This means, according to the timeline, that this night is the same night as the carriage scene. What a crazy world. Something happens to Michael in this moment and he can finally see a life with Francesca with no guilt, and he can't miss his opportunity, so he travels to Scotland immediately. Should we see what's gonna happen in Scotland? I think we should see what's gonna happen in Scotland. Phil appears and tells Francesca, hey, your brother Colin, he is engaged and he's engaged to Penelope. And Francesca is shook because 1, she didn't know they liked each other. 2, she didn't know they were courting. Francesca looks at Michael and she goes, are you planning on staying long? Michael just responds with, it depends. What does it depend on? On you. Don't be silly, this place is yours. I will fix you up a room. Actually, I will just take all my stuff out of the Earl's main room and that'll be yours because technically you are the Earl, so that is what we will do. We'll just move all my stuff. Francesca, that might not be necessary, is what he actually says. That's not even me exaggerating. He actually says that. He goes on saying, I didn't mean to kiss you. No, Michael, of course you didn't. We didn't mean to do that. But now that we have, everything has changed, Francesca. She notices in this moment that he's actually really nervous and she sees that he is holding onto the arm of a chair for dear life to the point where his knuckles are white. That is how hard he is grasping onto this chair. Michael finally tells Francesca that he has given this a lot of thought. He thinks the best course of action is that they need to get married. Excuse me? You're not listening to me, just listen and it'll all make sense. Francesca immediately says, I can't marry you. Why not, Francesca? Why not? Michael goes on saying, don't you want to get married to a man who already respects you and cares about you and put your needs first? And I will give you kids, or at least I will try my hardest. Michael, what will you even gain from this, is what Francesca asks him. Well, easy. I have someone who I respect, I'm friends with, and someone who already understands the estate and what comes with being the Countess. She shakes her head and she tells him that she is going upstairs. He tells her to wait. And then he asks, do you want another kiss? Word for word, that is what he says. Do you want another kiss? She shakes her head and goes, it was a mistake. Francesca, it's not a mistake if we get married. Michael, I can't marry you and you know it. Why? Because you're you. Michael replies with, for the first time in a long time, there is no one else I would rather be. She just responds with, Michael. He says, is that Michael yes or is that Michael no? She simply says, I don't know. To which he says, fair enough. And then they kiss again. / they do a little more than kiss. Also, remember in the beginning how they were playing that game called Tell Me Something Wicked? It's brought back in this scene for what's happening in the room. It is now used for their benefit. That's all I'm gonna say. The next morning, Francesca is so confused, and so what does Francesca do? You may have guessed it, guys. She runs. She runs away. Pretty far, actually, and then it starts to rain, so she's hiding under a tree. Eventually, Michael does find her, and he's like, what on earth are you doing? Come back with me. We need to go. It's pouring. You're going to get sick. Let's just go. We can talk about this later. She finally agrees. She gets on the horse. They get like maybe 10 to 20 minutes down the road and the horse is exhausted, cannot go anymore. And so Michael goes, okay, I think that there's a little garden or cottage nearby, like maybe 20 minutes on foot. We will just stop there for the night. Why can't we just go home? Please just say we can go home, is what Francesca tells him. Michael goes, I mean, it's going to be like an hour to 2 hours on foot if we do that, and it's pouring rain. We have to get somewhere safe. Francesca obliges, and he tells her, why don't you run on ahead? I can't really go that fast because of the horse, but you go ahead, you get warm, you try and start a fire, I will meet you there. Francesca definitely does beat him there by a long shot, and she can't get the fire to start, but that is okay. He shows up. He's looking very disheveled because he had to actually build the horse a little shelter with his bare hands. But he goes over, he gets the fire started, then he also starts taking off his clothes, and Francesca's like, hold up, what are you doing? No, that's not what we're here for, no. And he's like, Francesca, we are soaked. It was just pouring outside. I don't want to get sick. And so he keeps doing this very aggressively so that she's not looking at him. Michael just laughs and goes, Francesca, I promise I will not do anything scandalous to you this morning. You are safe. And also I have a blanket on. And so she turns around. He also tells her, come sit by me by the fire. If you're not going to change out of your clothes, at least be here. Get warm. She does. They talk for a little bit. He goes, you never answered my question from last night. Question? What question? If you're going to marry me. Technically, you never asked me a question. You just said that we should get married and you gave me reasons. It was never a question. Pauses and she says, I will consider it. Michael waits for her to elaborate and she goes, I'll consider marrying you. I mean, at this point, I could even be with your child. He pauses and says, pity, I said that I wouldn't do anything to you this morning. She laughs a little bit and he looks down at his watch and he goes, good thing for us that it's only 5 minutes until the afternoon. He asks her, will you kiss me, Francesca? She doesn't move. He then says, can I kiss you, Francesca? She doesn't move. He asks one more time and she does start to sway. And in that moment, he realizes that he does finally have her the way that he's always wanted her, which is in love. And they have another fun night, which I'm not explaining because no thank you. That's not what this channel is. So let's keep going. On their ride home, Michael asks her again, will you marry me? She just tells him that she needs more time. He tells her if this is until she gets pregnant, they can keep on trying. That is A-okay with him. She just keeps repeating, I need more time, Michael. I need more time. I don't know. And this is because she is riddled with guilt because she keeps thinking that she's betraying John, not because she's thinking about remarrying him, but because of her strong feelings for Michael. She had it in her mind that she would just be marrying to have a kid and that would be it. But she really is falling in love with Michael and that is scaring her. When they get home, Michael goes to his office and honestly he is a little mad because Francesca will not give him a full answer and he does feel like he's getting used. But he also thinks of John in this moment, and this is the first time that he's actually even considered John in the equation, which makes him happy. It means that he hasn't been betraying him, and that he realizes that John would just want Michael to be happy, and he would just want Francesca to be happy. And in a way, he feels like he now has John's blessing. Later, Francesca finds Michael in the library, and Michael is in a really cheery mood, and Francesca's like, what is going on? He even starts talking to her about the weather, and again, I say, Francesca's like, what is going on? Michael tells her that he has something for her, and Francesca is now freaking out inside going, oh my God, please say it's not a ring. Please say it's not a ring. Don't be a ring. Please don't be a ring. And he sets down a bouquet of flowers, and she goes, these are beautiful. Why? He looks at her and goes, these are for you because I am now courting you because you deserve it. Which honestly is actually a cute moment. Being Francesca, she is now freaking out. Once again, what's new? She tells him that she needs to go to her room. She just wants to lay down for a little bit. He goes, that's great. And then he looks at her and goes, since we're courting, do you mind if I give you a farewell kiss? She nods and she expects him to like actually kiss her, but he reaches for her hand and he softly kisses it and says, dream of me. She literally can't move. And so Michael's like, do you want to do more than just dream of me? Which she did. And so they had some fun in the library. So after this, it has been about 3 weeks and Michael has proposed about 2 times within the span. Michael's getting a little like, eventually, will you marry me? Like, what is happening? You're kind of just leaving me hanging here. That's how Michael's feeling. While things are starting to happen one night, Francesca stops him and goes, no, I can't. I don't even know who I am anymore. I am a fallen woman. I can't. He responds with, then marry me. It'll all be fixed, just marry me. She says, I wasn't supposed to feel this for another man. What were you supposed to feel? Passion. She doesn't go in depth, but we all know that she's talking about love. He doesn't know that, but we know. Michael is immediately hurt by this answer. He really just feels like she is using him for a kid. He thought one day maybe she would say yes, they would get married happily ever after, and she would love him. But at this point, he's like, she's not gonna love me. She's just using me. He asks her, point blank period, why are you still here? If you won't marry me, what do you even have here in Scotland? Why do you stay when I'm here? What is the reason? She literally can't say anything else except I won't marry you. And he looks at her and he goes, I want you gone, please. Please pack up your bags and leave. If you won't marry me, you have no reason to stay here. It is just hurting me. Please leave. She keeps asking him, why now? Why are we doing this? I don't understand. And Michael screams, because I love you, because I have always loved you. He is now basically shouting her going, because I love you, because I've always loved you. I loved you when I went to India. I loved you when you were with John. I have always been in love with you. He keeps going on too. Francesca's not saying anything. He keeps going on. He goes, I love you, my cousin's wife. I love you, the one woman I can never have. I love you, Francesca, Bridgerton, Stirling. I love you. She cries out for him to stop, but he keeps going because all these years of his pent up emotions are just overflowing out of him and he can't be stopped. Michael finally looks at her and goes, go if you're not mine. Please leave because I will not be able to walk away from you. Please. And what does she do? She flees. Of course. But a few hours have passed after she's fled. She comes back to the Kilmartin house. She looks at him and she says, I will marry you. I will marry you. Why? Is all he asks. I don't know. Francesca says, you're gonna have to do better than that, is what Michael says. Francesca goes, I don't know yet. Please give me the time to figure it out. I don't know yet. Michael looks at her and goes, you can't take this back. There's no cold feet. There's no backing out of this wedding. If you say yes right now, we're getting married. Basically, he means no more running away. And she agrees. So they are engaged. We're gonna fast forward just a little bit, not a lot, but like just a little bit, like maybe like a week or two, give or take. And Francesca informs Michael that Penelope and Colin are married. They moved the wedding up and they are now married, but that's not even the real kicker. Eloise and someone named Philip are married. And Michael goes, who? Eloise? Was she even courting anyone? And that's what Francesca's like, no, I don't think that they were. I'm so confused, but also they didn't fill me in. Why didn't anyone tell me anything? Michael says, we're in Scotland. How would they have even gotten to you in time for you to be able to get there? But then he goes, well, I mean, since you weren't able to go to their weddings, we should just get married. We should get married today. And Francesca agrees. Later that day they get married, and later that night she tells Michael that she is so happy. This is the time where Michael finally calmly tells her that he loves her. We're gonna go 2 more weeks in the future because we keep doing these time jumps. Michael is sick with a fever that will not break. And Francesca is frantic, stressing out. She thinks that this is the malaria again and that this is going to be so bad and he might not survive. He keeps telling her, it doesn't feel the same as malaria. I think this is just a really bad cold. I promise you I'm going to be okay. She is flipping out. Eventually his fever does break and she learns that he is okay. It wasn't malaria, but this is the moment everything kind of clicks into place for her. She is about to tell Michael something so exciting and then she goes, I have to leave. I will be back, but I have to leave. Michael's really confused. Francesca goes to the gardener. She asks for a few flowers, and then she winds up at John's grave. She kneels down and she tells John everything, how much she misses him, how much she loved him, how at first she thought she was betraying him, but in reality, she knows that he has given them his blessing and that she'll always love him, but she loves Michael as well. And all of a sudden she hears a weird sound. As soon as she says she loves Michael, she turns around and who's standing there? Michael. He heard everything and he's so happy. She even asks him, did you hear that? And he goes, I love you. Immediately, I love you. She tells him she loves him as well, and he goes, I don't know what I did to deserve you. She responds with, you didn't have to do anything, it just took me some time to realize it. Turn around to head back to the Kilmartin house, but Michael whips his body around and mouths the word, thank you, to John's grave. The end. Let's get into the epilogue. The first epilogue is a letter from Janet to Michael saying that their relationship was a shock, but the more that Janet and Helen thought about it, the more of a perfect match Michael and Francesca seemed to be. She gives Michael her blessing for Francesca because please remember that Janet was Francesca's mother-in-law, and so in some ways she feels like she needs to give this blessing. Even though technically she doesn't, she feels compelled to. And I really do love that. I love that relationship so much. But this is the kicker. She ends the letter saying, thank you, Michael, for letting my son love her first. I love that. The second epilogue, we are focusing on Francesca. She's still struggling to conceive a child, and we're seeing her feel very, very guilty because she should be happy for all of her siblings that are growing their family, making their family bigger, but she's so jealous. She's so jealous because that is all she wants. Eventually she comes back home and she shows the family that she had a baby and they named it John. Violet notes that John looks just like Francesca, and then 9 months later they come back with another baby named Janet, who is said to look just like Michael. And that is the end of When He Was Wicked. I really like this book in comparison to the last one, and I originally gave it 3 stars. I'm upping it. I'm giving like a 4.5. I really enjoyed it, and I liked the pacing, and I liked the slow burn aspect. I had a good time with this one. That is all I have for this video, so if you made it to the very end, you are a trooper, and I appreciate you so much. Please let me know down below if there are any other series that y'all want me to cover so that I can get a jump start on it and get that out to y'all ASAP. But next week, a week from today, y'all will have Hyacinth and Gregory's video. Thank y'all so much for being here. See y'all soon. Goodbye, everyone.